Good evening. I'd like to call the business meeting to order. Could I have a roll call, please?
Wilson. Here. Platt.
Present.
Hall.
Present.
Larson.
Here.
Guard. Here. Charles.
Here.
Sanchez. Here.
Okay, may I have an approval of the agenda, please?
Madam President,
Yes.
I'd like to
Mr.
make
Clark.
a motion for 2 agenda changes. The
Okay.
first being to postpone the Avid presentation until the April business meeting. The second to postpone the alternate school program proposal until after July 1st at the discretion of Dr. Monroe.
Okay, is there a second to the motion, please?
I'll second.
All right. Any discussion? All in favor of approval of the agenda as amended by Mr. Klett, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, so the amendment is approved. The agenda is approved as amended. And now, I would like to welcome Eli and Aubrey Seichter. Can you come up and tell us, what school do you go to? Todd Elementary? And who are your teachers? Mrs. Helen? Stoller? And who's your teacher? Mrs. Warbeck and Mrs. Van Warbeck. Oh, Mrs. Warbeck and Mrs. What's the other one? Oh, Vanden Langenberg. Hey, I know that name. Okay, would you guys like to come over here? And we really appreciate you coming tonight, and we appreciate your mom bringing you in. If you want to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, that's always my favorite part of our board meeting. All right, now we have announcements. Are you doing announcements, David? All right, thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for being here with us this evening and tuning in to our meeting. Thank you for Mr. Vissers for putting together the minutes or these recognitions for us. So, please bear with me as I go down the list. Spring break is April 1st through April 5th. Classes will resume on Monday, April 8th. Becca's Closet at Beloit Memorial High School will have numerous dates that they will be open for both girls and boys free prom wear. So please see the district website under announcements for dates. During the months of April and May, our 6 elementary schools will have their artwork on display at Beloit Public Library as part of Art Library Show. Please check our district website under the announcements tab to see which school is displaying their artwork each week. Beloit Child Development Day is on Wednesday, April 10th at Head Start on Henry Avenue from 8:30 a.m. until 5:30 p.m. That's for kids 0 birth to 3. Gaston Elementary is hosting their Expo Night on Wednesday, April 10th from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. The Visual Performing Arts Showcase is at Beloit Memorial High School on Thursday, April 11th from 5:30 to 7 o'clock p.m. Aldrich Intermediate School is hosting their Expo and Math Night on Tuesday, April 16th, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Cunningham Intermediate will be hosting their Expo Night on Wednesday, April 17th from 5 to 6:30 p.m. The Beloit Memorial Hall of Fame ceremony and program is on Thursday, April 18th at 9:15 in the fabulous Bernie Barkin Arena. And the School District of Beloit Employment Expo is that same evening from 4 to 7 p.m. also in the fabulous Bernie Barkin Arena. Robinson Elementary School is hosting their Expo Night on Tuesday, April 23rd from 5 to 6 p.m. Fruzen Intermediate is holding their spring band concert on Tuesday, April 30th at 7 p.m. And a full listing of all the spring athletic events can be accessed under the athletics tab on Beloit Memorial High School website. Please tip your teachers and principals with hugs.
Okay, thank you. And now, Mr. Vissers, you have a special recognition this evening.
Yes, I do. Thank you, Madam President. Good evening, and also good evening to school board members and community members listening online or via public access TV. My first recognition tonight will be Mr. Matt Flynn. Mr. Flynn was recently awarded a Herb Cole Fellowship. Matt was one of only 100 teachers from throughout Wisconsin to be recognized as a Cole Fellow recipient. In addition, Matt received a $6,000 scholarship and was honored this past Saturday at a regional award luncheon in Sun Prairie. I'd also like to note that there's going to be no arguing in the Flynn household because Matt's wife, Angela, teaches in a neighboring district and was also awarded a Herb Cole Fellowship. So congratulations to both you and your wife.
Mr. Flynn, congratulations. I know how well-deserved this recognition is because I know what kind of a teacher you are. My kids both had you, and they still talk about you to this day. Whenever anything historical comes up, Mr. Flynn told us this, and we learned in A-Push about this, and your students love you. And you're an excellent teacher, so I know you deserve this recognition, and I just want to congratulate you.
Congratulations, Matt. I'm going to call him Matt because we worked very closely on the Kids Against Hunger program this last year, and he also did a great job with the National Honor Society kids. And I appreciate your support and all the work you did on that. It turned out to be a successful event. So thank you and congratulations.
Okay.
And I do have 5 more recognitions. Unfortunately, they can't be here this evening. They're all with the wrestling team, and they're over at the high school as we speak, volunteering and helping out with the big all-city youth wrestling tournament that's going on over there. We had 5 wrestlers that were named first team or honorable mention for the 2019 Beloit Daily News All-Area Wrestling Team. First team members were Griffin Obernieder at 126 pounds, Dakota Copland at 145 pounds, Tyler Cirici at 195 pounds, and Ryan Caudle at 285 pounds. Honorable mention, Fernando Badillo at 160 pounds. And I'll make sure I get these all over to Mr. Beard so he can distribute those to well-deserved to the kids that won the award.
Thank you, and congratulations to all the wrestlers.
And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Okay, and now it's time for public comment. Is there anyone in tonight's audience that would like to speak at the podium on any topic that's not on the agenda? Yes, we have one. No? Yes. Okay, go. Have you filled out the card? Yes. All right, then you can proceed up while I read this. The Board of Education is now at the place on the agenda for the public hearing. This is your opportunity to share comments which the Board of Education will generally not respond to or act on, but will listen to and will consider with regard to the district's, I'm sorry, is this the correct thing? The district's budget? I feel like I'm reading the wrong thing now.
No.
I got the wrong paper. You have. Just let you read it. Okay, the Board of Education meetings are conducted for the purpose of carrying on the business of the schools. The board, as a representative body of the School District of Beloit, wishes to provide an avenue for any individual to express interest in and concern for the schools. Accordingly, the public is invited to attend any sessions of the board or any meetings of board committees. At every business meeting of the board, time is set aside for personal presentation of individuals or group comments. Each person wishing to speak during this time shall complete the public comment card with their first and last name, home address, including state, if other than Wisconsin. The comment card shall then be given to the board secretary entering into public record. Each person will be given up to 3 minutes to speak. on the topic of interest or concern. Should the individual require translation assistance, a translator may be of the individual's choosing or one provided by the district. Public comments requiring translation will be given 6 minutes. Areas of interest or concern that are on the agenda shall be addressed at the time they're called for on the agenda. The Board of Education asks the individuals complete the public comment card, give it to the board secretary, and approach the microphone when called upon. All right.
That wasn't your 3 minutes, by the way. You
I was just going to ask, does that,
So, thank you.
when was the time started? I just wanted to make sure.
Just
How's everybody doing today?
Just introduce
Awesome,
yourself with
awesome.
your name.
My name is Jawan Winfield. I live on the corner of Park and Hickory, 1806 Park. Just had a question for the board. With the I think we had a 2-star rating right now. What does the board plan on doing going forward? I know we got Forbin Seeds coming up, and this district has been through a lot. And my kids, they've been going through it, and, you know, I'm just seeing a lot going on. And I think it starts at the top. So, please, anybody, what are we going to do?
We don't typically respond to questions during this time, but I will tell you that this board just hired an excellent superintendent, and that's what we're doing, and that's our role, to hire a superintendent and to hold the superintendent accountable for everything that happens under it. And another thing we're doing is, you might notice tonight, we're evaluating our strategic plan, which is also our role. So thank you so much.
Is that the plan? Is that the behavior plan or the plan to get the parents in this community?
We're not going to be able to answer. We can't. I've already kind of did more than we normally do, but
Okay.
thank you.
I still got a minute left.
Sure.
How do you guys feel about the Merrill Community Center, Merrill Community, the school? It's in the Merrill community, being a 1-star school now. How did that make you guys feel?
You're welcome to email us, and then you will hear back from individual board members if you would like to do that. We appreciate it. We really do.
So nobody on the board can tell me how that made you feel?
We don't,
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
this is public comment time, but we don't typically have conversation.
Gotcha.
Appreciate it,
Still
though.
got a minute left. So who do you guys got winning the Final Four? I just need a question answered.
Again,
not
if
Wisconsin.
you'd like to email the board, we'll give you our response.
Okay. I just figured I got a minute left. I mean, somebody got to give me can I get like a straightforward answer? I'm sorry. I've been in this community since '97. I came down here. I moved from the city of Detroit, where I don't know if anybody know that city is going through a lot of turmoil and hurt and pain. And 48 seconds left. Baby, don't let me go over my time, okay? Okay. So I just want, can I share something with the school board?
Of course.
I walked into my my high school class my freshman year, and my teacher told me, "You will not make it to C21." I fear that for this community, and I think it's going to start with you guys. I mean, I really appreciate you. I love what you guys do. Is there anything that you can tell me? Is there something I can do to help? I know you can't discuss it. I'm going to email you, though, Mrs. Strauss.
Actually, there is, and
Okay.
if you email me, I will tell you, someone who is asking
Perfect.
for
I
people
got an
like you
answer.
to help, and it's coming, there's a meeting this week. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank
We
you.
appreciate you caring.
Yep.
Hey, Pam, I know we don't normally, but it's my last meeting, so that gentleman brought up some good concerns, but just to reassure you, as a Beloit graduate and having been through the school system, we've got work to do. The board recognizes that. We went through the superintendent hire. We hired the most qualified person that we could. He's got leadership abilities. He knows there's problems. He's already identified problems in the district. He's laying a plan out, so we're looking forward to July 1st. And what that gentleman said was, be engaged with your schools, be engaged with the board, and stay active, and get to know the new superintendent when he comes to our community. He wants to know you, and it's a team effort, but we've got a really great leader coming to this district.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Klett.
Hi, my name is Prisha Agostina. I live at 1313 11th Street in Beloit. I'm a retired teacher from the school district of Beloit. Been here many years. My father was also a teacher here. I'm a grandmother to a child that's at the high school. there's a couple comments I'd like to make. I'm very excited to see what this new discipline pilot program is that I think is going to be talked about tonight and what I read in the paper. I'm very supportive of change, and we all know we need it, just like the gentleman talked about before. So I'm very, I'm encouraged the fact that the district is doing something about it and looking towards helping our children, both those that are disruptive and disrespectful in the classroom. I'm glad to hear that there's going to be some help for those children, and I'm also glad to hear that the children that are sitting there wanting to be educated will also be provided the education that they deserve. So I'm very anxious about that. One thing I'd like to comment regarding the 4th Street closure. I live on the west side, and there's a lot of problems with traffic. So I don't know the proposal, what is going to happen, but all I'm asking and making you aware of is that we have a definite traffic problem, and my husband had to one time either pick up or drop off the granddaughter, and he came home and was just irate. He said it was awful, the most horrible thing he had to go through was trying to manipulate through the traffic. So I also have had the same experience, and it's just not welcoming. And so as you move forward with the closure of 4th, I would like to see maybe some type of traffic pattern, maybe a portion of that street that's now just being blocked off, maybe some kind of through the traffic or through the parking lot, or a portion of that being able to be a drop-off area, something to be looked at, because it's very much needed. And I think we need to, as a district, a community and everything, be aware of that, because we want our high school to be welcoming, just like the Welcome Center. We want to have our parents and anybody dropping off kids or picking them up feel welcome, that they have a place to drive and pick those children up. I know as we leave the south end of the parking lot and the sign says you cannot turn left, I was in that boat looking at that. I did not observe it. I had to take a left, because I'm telling you to take a right and go out onto 6th Street and then sit there and try to get out into 6th Street with no stoplight. I needed to go down and pick my granddaughter up off by the theater. And so I needed to get there. So for me to get there and follow your signs, you'd have to go this way and that way and try to get back around. And it's not a good plan. So please consider what you're doing with drop-off and pickup and routing traffic as you proceed forward with looking at the closure.
Thank you so much, Ms.
Thank you.
Christina. Appreciate it. Would anyone else like to speak on any topic? Okay. We'll move on to our next agenda, which is closure of 4th Street in front of Beloit Memorial High School. Good evening.
Good evening. I guess that is a great segue, actually, and I think we're going to have an answer for you, so thank you for that. I'm Laura Pagatti Williamson. I'm the Director of Public Works for the City of Beloit. I have Jason Dupuis with me also, who is our Assistant City Engineer, and we're here tonight as a follow-up to the joint school board city council meeting that was held about a week and a half ago, where collectively you were talking about the temporary closure of 4th Street that was anticipated at the time to be a temporary program, see how things went throughout the year. Although it wasn't seamless and it wasn't completely perfect, overall it seemed to be working to enhance the safety and security for the high school students that are trying to cross the street, as well as the teachers and guests. As a part of that, during that meeting, there was consensus amongst both boards and both agencies that we want to move forward collectively for the permanent closure of 4th Street. Jason has put up on the board for everybody to look at where the closure would occur. It's in front of the high school. It would be between North Street and between Middle and North. I know that Sean has been working with your design consultants and looking at what the permanent closure would look like. I know that's ensuing right now, that design. As a part of the closure, as you can see at 2 intersections, I'm going to concentrate on Middle and 6th. We are looking to add a turn lane so that it'll help for the traffic circulation at the intersection of Middle and 6th. We also are looking at a turn lane at the intersection of 6th and North. In order for that construction to move forward, we're here tonight requesting that the board would give direction to your staff to initiate the vacation process with the city, and it has to be initiated by the school district, to submit that application by April 8th so that we can stay on track to have these improvements done in time for the school year of 2019-2020. So we're trying to do this construction and this work over the summer to be least disruptive from the construction standpoint. The second piece that we are asking for this evening is the transfer of the school district property land to the city so that we can have the necessary right-of-way for the city to construct the turn lanes. The city's contribution to that is approximately $150,000 for both turn lanes, including the design and the construction. Regarding some of the traffic concerns, I know in talking with Sean, and we've been working with him throughout the year, the school district staff has been looking at circulation throughout the parking lot. Some of the discussions that the school district has shared is that they really wanted to see how traffic was maneuvering throughout the school year to see what would be more permanent solutions for the circulation within the parking lot. And I know that that is still ensuing, and I'm sure Sean could go into much more greater detail for you on that. Regarding the intersection or the turn lane at North and 6th Street, we've recently been made aware of a study that the school district has been working on regarding some of the properties surrounding that area. We need to work closer with the school district. We need to review that study a little more closely so that particular construction may or may not be delayed. However, the city is definitely poised and in a position that once the vacation is approved and the school district is moving forward with the work to close the street, we're looking to move forward with the construction improvements at the intersection of 6th and Middle for sure. Already have the funds allocated for the budget this year. We've been designing it. We also anticipate as a follow-up that there would be an intergovernmental agreement outlining this, but to keep things moving from the construction schedule, that's why we're here this evening as a follow-up to the joint meeting. We've also placed at your seats an outline of an anticipated schedule. And again, the majority of that schedule is predicated on a submittal coming forth to the city by April 8th. Similarly to the processes you need to go through, we too have processes for vacation as well as dedication of right-of-way. So I know I've covered a lot of information in a very quick period of time. Happy to answer any questions.
Does anyone have any questions? Nora?
I'm trying to think back to our meeting. So tonight you need a motion from our board. Is that right? We don't have anything specific in our packet, but April 8th is your deadline to have an approval from this board to go forward with your plans. Is that correct?
I'm going to defer some of that to Sean.
I don't see anything, but you need some sort of an approval by April 8th. Is that right?
Yeah, and we discussed it at the joint meeting, but we didn't take any action, and so they're looking for action tonight, but this is the first I've seen of this diagram, and we don't have anything in our packets.
Okay, that's what my question was. Okay, so you are, Mr. Winters, you're looking for an approval from the board at some point in time before April 8th so that you can move forward with this plan. Is that correct?
Yes, we've been working on the language for the vacating, or I should say for the right turn lanes, and the vacating of the 4th Street property. The city should have the paperwork tomorrow.
Okay.
I've been working with Batterman to fill out all the proper paperwork, and we received that today for sign-off, so
Oh.
the city will receive that tomorrow.
Okay, so our next meeting, we can expect some wording on what you're
Correct.
looking for. Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Thank you for your time too and the presentation tonight. Thank you.
I'd like to, go ahead. Mr. Larson.
I know that when we temporarily closed 4th Street last summer, that we were hiring an interim superintendent, and we lost 3 people on the board, and I think we dropped the ball in communication about what was happening in traffic patterns. So to me, it's very important that we use, I'm talking more to our district folk, that we use conferences in April as well as registration to make sure that we have tables set up with information, with the new traffic patterns, letting parents know ahead of time how everything is going to go, so that, again, when we come back in September, it's not going to be something different, just to make everyone aware.
I do want to say that about 3 weeks ago, I met with Jason Dupuy and Frank McKern about just that, traffic patterns at the high school. We have some exciting things coming down the pike, such as a parking lot addition and a roundabout. I will very briefly just go over. Very shortly, we'll be releasing an RFP to add additional parking here, which mainly will be for staff. Closer down by where Taco John's is, that'll be your entrance and also a means of leaving the parking lot. We're looking at changing this to a one-way, to an exit instead. This the left-hand turn, which you spoke about. If we do that, there will no longer be a need for that. But what the issue was, the left-hand turn, people were driving this way, and then trying to drive in here, creating a huge bottleneck.
That's because some of the children would come out that, and we need for the kids to go a little bit.
Right. So in essence, with adding the parking lot here. Oh, that's right. Smart board, no operator. We plan on the parking lot going to right about down here, having the entrance here, and possibly, depending upon my budget, also doing some work here. This summer also, we'll be doing a roundabout right here, which will help with traffic. We're adding 13 stalls here. So we have some very exciting projects coming up. This right here should really alleviate a lot of our traffic concerns. So again, we have been working with the city, and we have been working with engineers to taking account your concerns and everyone's concerns. I'm concerned.
Any traffic lights on 6th at all?
That would be,
No.
again,
Not immediately.
would be city, but
Not at this point, no.
So I'd like to ask the board, has anyone received concerns from citizens or parents? I have received none until tonight, not one. So has anyone else? No. And our student rep, how's it going as far as you're concerned from what you're hearing?
About the commotion in the parking
Traffic
lot.
flow, drop off, pickup, parking?
It's getting worse. I actually hit someone the other day, and I'm very broke, so I was scared. It was minor, but the parking lot is normally like really congested. There's a lot of kids always like coming out of the building, and then oftentimes, I forget the street, Middle Street, I believe. They're crossing that street there, and then there's cars trying to turn to the light. So it's kind of scary crossing right there. Yeah, it's just really congested. So I don't know. I do think that this plan would be beneficial, though. Just better picking up and dropping off spots. And then, what else was I going to say? I forgot. But yeah, picking up and dropping off spots for sure. Oh yeah, there's like parents parking in the parking lot where you would normally like just travel through. So it oftentimes causes a block. So everyone's just sitting in the street, and it's just really congested, and you can't go anywhere. It normally takes me, I have to come back to the school to pick up my sister because I get out early. It normally takes me about 25 minutes just to get out of the parking lot after she's in the car. So, yeah.
Okay. I see some more heads nodding in the audience, too. And then I had a question about handicap drop-off. That concern was brought up when this topic very first came up, and I did hear that we might have a problem with that still. Can anyone share anything about that?
The southern end of the high school, right here, is all and I won't cut it this time. It's all handicap parking and drop off. So again, coming through here, this would all be handicap parking. Plus, we're also looking at adding extra handicap stalls in our main parking lot. The thing we have to remember, by adding these stalls down here, we're taking a lot of cars that park here, placing them here, especially staff. So that will allow us more room to come up with a better plan. Maybe if we have this thing, we're also looking at possibly making this a one-way, the exit onto North Street. So there's a lot of options up there for us that come with this. So we're looking at everything.
Okay. Yes.
Wasn't the concern that it was policing the handicap spots, people were parking there to drop off and pick off kids that were not handicapped? I'm not sure.
I remember something about that.
That was brought up.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the first I've heard about it is possible, and we can look into that. Oh, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So we didn't have anything in our board packet this evening. We didn't have anything to look at until tonight. We didn't see a plan until tonight. We could postpone this vote until the 2nd. We have a meeting on April 2nd. It's up to the board what they would feel more comfortable with.
There's no action item tonight, Pam, and I would feel more comfortable April 2nd.
Okay. All right, so we will put this. No, there is no action item. So we had nothing to prepare with, so we can put this on the agenda for April 2nd. We really appreciate you presenting to the public tonight. I think that's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Welcome Center update. Mr. Winters.
Okay, I'll be brief. The budget for the project is $5.5 million. We are on track to spend $5.3 million, with the remainder going towards the purchase of furniture. At this point, the drywall and the rough-ins are being completed. The building is on track, as designed, to be completed by the 3rd week of July. There have been several requests for changes, which would increase the expense and push out the substantial completion time. But we are still waiting to hear from the architect as far as what that scope will entail, what the price cost would be, and the timeline. So I do not have that information tonight.
Okay, when do you think you might be able to present that to the board for approval?
I suspect a week.
Okay.
Maybe 2.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Any questions, Mr. Klatt?
The only question I have is, with the changes, do they come back to the board for approval? Or I've heard different stories throughout the district that people have made changes without approval, so it'd be kind of nice to know the process as to the changes that may or may not come forward and the budgetary concerns they have. And I'm all for do it right the first time. So if it means a few extra dollars, I'm not an easy spend guy, but let's do it right. But let's make sure we all communicate so there's no surprises at the end and we end up with something we don't really want.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So when you bring it back, we would like to see what all the changes were and what, what the latest ones are and the expense that would be added with these changes, and we do have to approve it.
Yes, and again, that would, I am subject to waiting for the cost back from the architect and the contractor.
Sure. Thank you. Any other questions? Anyone? Okay, thank you very much. Now, I think you're up next still, Mr. Winters, for playground and basketball court flooding discussion. And this was something that, as our incoming superintendent toured our schools a couple weeks ago, he noticed because he visited every elementary school, I believe. And so we asked you to talk about this and what's happening with this to correct the situations, please.
Well, I want to preface this by saying that we've had the worst spring in 30 years. And it's not just us, it is nationwide. So I cannot guarantee that we will never flood out in playgrounds, buildings, what have you. The two concerns that were brought to me are the two that I already know about. Todd has been in planned for at least last summer. And we actually have, we met 4 months ago. We have a plan that will be implemented next week. What we'll wind up doing, the issue is that Todd is at the basketball court is flooding out. And we will be hooking up essentially a diversion to the stormwater out into the city street. We are doing this thing right. We went to the city, got approval for our plans. McMahon will be doing the work next Tuesday. Monday, Batterman will be laying out the way for the piping, and we should be substantially done with that by end of next week. Robinson, no, that's a whole different story. Problem with Robinson is that is the actual material that we have there. It does not soak water well. I had a engineer come out and study. We did borings. Long story short, the cost estimate to fix that was $337,000. So I did my due diligence to work with engineers to come up with a cheaper, more effective system. And I think that we actually have that. 3 weeks ago, I met with Batterman and actually Jason Dupuy from the city. And we think we have a plan, which would hopefully be a tenth the cost. It has proven successful not only at other businesses, but also I believe Beloit Turner used the same process.
We're talking about the grass playground,
yes.
Correct? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So, again, this is something we would not tackle until this summer. It would be quite disruptive to the playground for the rest of the school year. So, I would suspect that by July, mid-July, we'll be complete.
Okay. Anyone have any questions about these topics? All right, I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, now we have a report. The agenda was amended. Pardon? Oh, the entire thing, or are we still talking? I'm sorry, I can't hear you. All right, I thought we had part of the, I thought we were doing part of E.
We have part of that.
Part of E. Okay. Half of E, yeah. Okay, and who's presenting that? Mr. Wong, who's presenting that?
Well, I can provide a brief update on it. We've continued, groups have been meeting. There's a survey that was conducted at the elementary school level that for all the elementary school staff to determine behavior issues and what are the hot topics. The intermediate school, they continue to work on the pilot program, which will be presented probably at a later date, but we'll move on that. But tonight we'll have we started on Monday, a hallway expectation tardiness intervention pilot program. And I believe, Emily, are you going to prepare, or can you speak on behalf? Yeah. I think that going into the highlights of the program and probably discussing how things were for the first couple of days, and I can comment as well. I was there on Monday.
My name is Emily Pels. I am the interim principal at Beloit Memorial High School. And as Mr. Wong mentioned, we implemented a new tardy policy at the high school this week. And so basically the expectation is that all students will be in class and 100% ready for instruction to begin when the bell rings. And that sounds pretty basic, but the difference between that and what is that previous we were implementing what we called a hero system. And so what that entailed was when the bell rang, students had the opportunity to go to a location in the hallway for the first 10 minutes of class and receive a hero pass to go into class late. And so what happened with that is that some students actually learned the behavior of going to class late habitually because they would take advantage of those 10 minutes. And so instead of trying to get to class on time, they thought, well, I had an extra 10 minutes, I can go get this pass, and then I can take a few more minutes to get to class, which then resulted in students in the hallway more often than what they should be. So the priority of our new policy is to minimize hallway traffic after passing time and during class time in order to increase safety and security within the building and to increase time on task within the learning environment. To start off, we spent a fair amount of time teaching the expectation. So we met with staff, and we had about an hour-long staff meeting where we taught them explicitly what the expectations were. They have specific roles and responsibilities when it comes to addressing students in the hallway who are tardy, to writing passes, to managing different times throughout the day, such as lunch and academic lab, things like that. And then from there, the teachers explicitly taught the students what the expectations were through 3 different presentations on 3 different days. One of the presentations was a basic overview. One of the presentations focused on what to do during first block, because that's a different issue for tardy than it is between class time. And then the third presentation focused on how to use passes in between those times during the day, such as lunch and the restroom and academic lab and those things. So all of those lessons were taught last week with the implementation day of yesterday for the very first time. And so far, we believe we're seeing positive results. I didn't run the numbers for today, but yesterday we were down 100 tardies from what we were the previous Monday. So we're going to continue to collect data to see how effective the policy is moving forward. The key is going to be consistency, especially with the staff. And that is, when you implement any policy, to make sure that everybody is implementing it the way it's designed, consistent, so that students and staff can reasonably expect what should happen. And then we also implemented some consistent consequences for the tardiness for students. So students who have 1 to 3 tardies are required, if they're late to class, to receive a pass to class in the ALE room from their administrator. So that time will be used or is used to have some corrective conversations, or it's a good time for students to express if they have an issue that keeps them from getting to school on time, so that the teacher and the student can problem solve around that, whether that means that a student needs a late start time or a permanent pass of some sort. They can figure that out during that conversation. 4 to 6 tardies, the student remains in ALE for the remainder of the class. A parent meeting is scheduled and the student is required to sign an agreement. 7 to 9 tardies, the student remains in ALE for the remainder of the day, and a parent meeting is scheduled and they'll review the agreement. And then 10 or more tardies may result in higher level discipline, such as an out-of-school suspension if the student consistently is late or refusing to go to class on time without a valid reason to be late. And so over time, we hope to work this system into more of like a privilege-based system and not a punitive system. And right now we have some positive reinforcement attached with it. We are looking at doing things for students like discounted prom tickets, staff to student basketball game, a picnic. We just had a freshman rec night last week, so potentially an upper class rec night, so some type of activities that students can come together and have a good time, but they've earned that, time together. So that concludes my update.
Any questions? Actually, I was there yesterday for the first 40 minutes, and the comment, I walked around with staff, and the comment that he had for me was, I haven't seen the hallways this clear all year long. So that was a very positive comment. One comment, though, coming from a student that I, in our house, has said, the comment was, yeah, this will work for a little while, and then we'll go back to a normal process. So I would highly encourage that staff listening and watching tonight at the high school understand that the chain is only as strong as the weakest link. So if you do not do this, everybody else needs to keep everybody else accountable. Otherwise, it will not work. So.
Agreed. Yes.
And I do have a question. Is this directly from the ad hoc committee, or is this administrator-driven program?
No, this is from the ad hoc committee, and there was a lot of discussion from staff, from SROs, and from APs. It was a joint effort. I thought it was very well done.
Well, I really appreciate that. This ad hoc committee has done a lot of work, and Mr. Wong, I really appreciate you taking charge of it and sharing it and seeing positive things like this come from it. And hopefully this becomes the new normal. We won't go back to the way it was. I don't think a motion is necessary. This is already up and running, and we'll just take, because this is not the final recommendation by any means. So does anyone else have any questions or concerns about this? Okay. Thank you, Ms. Pels. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I was told that the elementary school actually is going to present. They have a survey, and I believe you have the results of that, or is there information on that? So Ms. Ball will present.
So we sent out a survey to all of the elementary schools. We got 128 responses. From those responses, our first question was, what are the top 3 behavior concerns that teachers are seeing? And out of the responses, the top were classroom disruptions, disrespect minor, and insubordination. Our next question was if teachers felt like behavior was being handled consistently. 40% said often, and 39% said sometimes. Then we asked if staff felt like they were trained on the code of conduct, or when was the last time they were trained on the code of conduct. 34% said this school year, 33% said last school year. Then we asked if staff felt like they were adequately trained on classroom management. 86% said yes, 14% said no. And then we did ask for a section of additional comments, and they supported the behavior specialists. They are appreciative of the behavior specialists in their buildings. Some commented about an alternative setting for chronic disruptions, and then one comment was on continuing to be consistent with the administrators and the behavior in the buildings. And then we came up with some suggestions that we would like to implement the last term of the school year. One of them was a PBIS boot camp. So for students, when they return from spring break, schedule each classroom to review the COOL tools by reteaching and role-playing appropriate behavior for the students. All administrators should review the code of conduct with staff, and then the staff should review the different levels with the students. Behavior specialist, in conjunction with the PBIS coach, should review the behavior flowchart and the behavior matrix with all staff. All staff will review their current discipline data with their principal and develop a plan to address consistent behavior concerns. All staff will review and reteach second step lessons, and we want that done with fidelity. Elementary behavior specialists will schedule specific times of the day to allow for structured in-school suspension time for students that may require it. Also have the behavior specialists leading groups, utilizing second step mindfulness and check-in and check-out to reteach positive social emotional skills. Administrators should enter all referrals consistently using the district database program, Skyward, to monitor that behavior. And those were some of the things that we came up with to implement fourth term.
Okay, thank you for that report. A lot of the things we're hearing from teachers as well. Appreciate it. Anyone have any questions? Yes, Mr. Clapp?
Those are all nice thoughts. I hope that at the end of the fourth quarter, there will be an evaluation to see what we actually did do and what the success rate was and what did work and didn't work. And Anthony, just so you're not the only pick on, I hate it when we say sometimes and often, because I don't know what the difference between sometimes and often is when we do surveys. And I don't know that staff does either.
Good point. Okay, now we're on the next agenda item. Next agenda item is the strategic plan goal evaluation. We've had a strategic plan in place since 2016, and it has never come before the board for an evaluation until tonight. So we are really looking forward to this. And who will be beginning?
Mr. Bonds, you want to begin with the student?
Yes. Thank you. I did ask that strategic plans be left at our desks here for each board member so we can follow along. I don't see it, so if you want to pull it up on your iPad, you can find it and pull it up to follow along. I'm sorry they weren't here.
There it goes. Good evening, everyone. So I wanted to start off with the students. As you can see, the data that has been provided for you, some ambitious goals were set for improvement for our students. And when I mean ambitious, I mean they were SMART goals, things that we feel our students and buildings would be able to achieve. Unfortunately, from 2016 to 2017, there was a decrease in our overall performance for our students who take our forward exam for ELA as well as for math. Also, there was a decrease in performance for students overall for ACT ELA as well as mathematics. For goals related to literacy, the expectation was to increase performance by 5 to 7% as measured by the forward exam each year. Some of the action items that have been taken over the years since the strategic plan has been adopted are: 1, goals have been aligned based off of the strategic plan to the building, to principals, as well as teachers. So there's a strategic alignment of goals throughout the system. Professional development have been provided for teachers related to literacy. There has been embedded professional development provided for teachers, provided by our reading specialists. We've purchased new materials as well as materials for our classroom libraries, and we've monitored that progress. As you are aware, we also have implemented an early childhood literacy programming. We've also renewed and adopted new textbooks for our DLI program, and we provide professional development around that. We've also expanded summer school opportunities for students by increasing their school day to take care of what's known as the summer slide. Overall, as you can see, the goal was not met because our students did not achieve, or our buildings did not achieve 5 to 7% growth in ELA. Goal number 2, number of students scoring proficient or advanced in literacy by increasing 5 to 7% on the ACT. Some of the same similar efforts were put into place. All buildings, in this case, the high school and BLA and RCAA, had to establish building goals connected to the strategic plan. Those goals were then aligned to staff goals, so teachers had to also establish goals in the area of literacy, math, learning environment, and parental engagement. Teachers then adopted goals also for their professional goals. We provided targeted interventions for students, ACT, free ACT, prep and materials were provided for all juniors, and we implemented a support program known as AVID. Goal number 3 in this area, all students will increase in mathematics by 3 to 5% each year as measured by the Wisconsin Forward exam. Again, that's taken by our students in grades 3 through 8. Some of the action items included all of our elementary schools, all of our intermediate schools. They all have established goals in the area of literacy, math, learning environment, and parent engagement. Those plans were then presented, if the board recalls and the community recalls, at the very beginning of the year, each school presented their school improvement plan. Some of the notable things that were implemented were the adoption of a new math curriculum program, provided professional development related to math for improved instructional practices for our staff. And we also provided targeted interventions for underperforming students. As you recall, over the last 2 years, we have expanded our intervention programming for students, providing targeted support through our math interventionists. And of course, we monitor students' progress along the way. The goal has not been met, and a lot of work is still needed. Goal number 4, all students will increase in math 3 to 5% each year as measured by the ACT. We adopted new math materials for grades 9, 10, and 11. We also provided professional development for our staff related to the area of their content. That's in algebra, geometry, as well as Springboard for ELA. We provided additional resources for our staff, and again, we provided ACT training and prep materials for all students, junior students that is. And of course, the AVID program was implemented that also supported that key area. Goal number 5, provide the Board of Education with a plan to turn around proposals for Hackett and Merrill. Again, those schools have identified program improvements through their school improvement plans. But at this point in time, schools have only started, and some schools are further along than others. Merrill is much further along than Hackett with regards to researching schools that are model schools that we would then bring back to the board as possible consideration for implementation, such as potentially, again, such as the becoming a STEM school, a specialty school such as Montessori, a school where it's a community-based school. Hackett is considering some options, and so is Merrill. So those options will be presented once schools have had a chance to continue to do their research, continue to connect with their families and community to make sure there is buy-in by the community, and those plans will be forthcoming. Number 6, provide the Board of Education with a reform model for the intermediate schools and the high school. Action plans thus far include: we adopted the academy model for BMHS, which focuses our students on careers of interest to make the high school feel much smaller and to increase student engagement. We created a freshman academy structure at the high school to, again, provide a lot of support for our incoming freshmen. We adopted the AVID program, which is a program that provides tutoring and intense support for students. It has been implemented in grades 9 as well as grade 10. The high school this year adopted a literacy focus. They call it AWP. And again, we provided ACT prep materials and free support for students. New curriculum was adopted in math, science, and the CTE area. We implemented a cell phone device management known as Yonder to improve the climate of the school. The closed campus has occurred for students in 9, 10, and 11, with plans to do so potentially in grades 12 this coming year. And of course, we monitor progress along the way. Goal number 7. To develop, implement, and assess the annual staff development plans to enhance instructional practices and supports for the district strategic plan. Some of the action included, again, each school created school improvement plans. Those plans were aligned to district goals. Some buildings, because of the uniqueness of the building, also adopted innovative programming that they felt would make programmatic improvements in their schools, such as some of our schools have adopted a program known as APTT. It's a program that that creates a different environment for how we do parent-teachers conferences at those schools, how we engage families in a different kind of way, how we make sure families are involved and aware of what students are expected to know and be able to do. So it's a different way of interacting with families and creating and increasing family engagement. We have another school, Hackett, that has also adopted what's called responsive classroom. It's an approach to building a community within the school as well as within each grade level. Those are some examples of schools that have done some innovative things. As a district, we established professional learning community, which simply means we provide teachers time to collaborate every other Wednesday so that they can discuss instructional practices, they can review student performance data, and to make decisions on how to make programmatic changes and improvements for students. And of course, this year we also provided intense training for our principals. We changed our principal training format. We used to meet once a month, and the meetings were very typical in nature. You know, they were procedural. They, it was more of a management kind of meeting. But this year we changed it. We engaged in the process with an organization called West Ed. West Ed provides training for principals to not only look at the professional standards for principals, but also to engage principals in a continuous improvement process, and so that they can develop those skills on analyzing data, making programmatic changes to make school improvements. You will hear more about that training at the next live meeting next month with West Ed. And of course, we provided also our overall staff with training on data usage and decision making. Goal number 8, to foster a culture of data-informed decision-making through implementation of annual building data literacy plans and ongoing district and building level data retreats. So we established school improvement plans. We provided training for our teachers and administrators to analyze data and to use data to make informed decisions. We also established school site teams this year to support school improvement efforts. School site teams, just think of them as building leadership teams. These are teams where a representative from each grade level works with the principal to problem solve issues in the building, to discuss things for improvements for culture and climate and academic performance. So those teams were established this year. And the last thing is we, again, established professional learning communities to provide teachers that dedicated time and expectation for collaboration and decision making. Number 9. Emily, Emily oversees student services and special education.
Okay, so we had a goal of improving the implementation of social emotional learning by effectively implementing evidence-based practices that will be monitored to measure the impact of student behavior on the school climate as measured by observational survey and discipline data. So the schools completed a bully prevention assessment during the 17-18 school year, and then this past year, the intermediate schools implemented their own bullying survey called the SAFE survey. And then a bully reporting and investigation program was purchased, and it's going to be implemented this coming term. We've had time built into the elementary and the intermediate school schedules dedicated to teaching universal social and emotional curriculum, which our curriculum is called the Second Step curriculum. That curriculum was also newly purchased and implemented fully in grades 4K through 8. So previous to that, it was just in the elementary schools. We have provided a series of professional development opportunity to staff to help with their expertise in supporting student behavior and social emotional development. Some of those professional development opportunities include restorative practices, trauma-sensitive classrooms, Second Step, youth mental health first aid, nonviolent crisis intervention, classroom management, de-escalation strategies, and gender-inclusive classrooms. And these are all professional development opportunities that we offer on a regular basis, either through our district professional development days or as a training that staff can sign up for during the school day and request a substitute to attend. We have established a partnership with Hope Counseling, and that partnership was established specifically to support our therapeutic classrooms. We currently have therapeutic classrooms in 5 of our schools, and they work specifically with students who have been identified with behavior-related disabilities. It's a self-contained classroom, and so what Hope does is provide behavioral health services to the students in those programs on site at the school. We've also expanded our partnership with the Beloit Health Systems to provide on-site behavioral health services to students at BLA. So we were just at the high school. We expanded, so now that they have an office at BLA as well. We added behavior specialist positions at the elementary level, 1 per building. There's scheduled time for building level staff to analyze and discuss discipline data and climate survey data. Discipline data is provided to the schools on a monthly basis. The climate survey was developed. It was new last year, and it's administered twice per year. Actually, we'll have it coming up here soon in May. There were student services personnel added to the intermediate and elementary levels in order to more closely represent the recommended student to staff pupil services ratios. And then finally, we had the development of the ad hoc Committee on Student Governance and Discipline. That was developed in November of 2018, and our subcommittees are working by grade band to identify short-term actions as well as long-term actions and to review and revise the Code of Conduct. And this goal has been partially met because we're still working with the ad hoc to bring forward those recommendations for programming and for the revision of the Code of Conduct. So that part hasn't been done completely yet.
Ms. Pels, can I ask you a question real quick? Mm-hmm. Do we still administer the Youth Risk Behavior Survey every year?
Yes, we do.
Because the board doesn't see that anymore. I'm not sure why. We used to get that when I first served on the board years ago. We used to get that every year. And I haven't seen one in the past 3 years.
Yep.
I haven't seen the results. It tells us a lot about the students.
Yes.
You
Yep.
know,
Yep, we can certainly share that. We're actually in the process of giving that right now.
okay, and then we don't have any idea from this presentation if discipline, and I first want to correct myself, this was adopted in 2017. It was created in 16, adopted in 17. We don't have anything in front of us to say has discipline improved or not improved based on data since 2017.
Over the years, discipline tends to stay pretty consistent with the numbers. There's not, I mean, the plan hasn't reduced discipline, I guess I can put it that way.
Okay. And then the behavior specialist, can you tell me what type of qualification is required for that or training?
So currently, the qualification for the behavior specialist position is a teaching certification. We do offer training on a monthly basis by meeting with the behavior specialists. They've been provided training specifically on implementing behavior intervention plans and writing them, as well as conducting functional behavior assessments, on coaching. They've received specific training on the second step curriculum and how to work with teachers on implementing that effectively. And so their training is more of a different topic, I guess, on a monthly basis, but specific to where we want the work to go in the buildings, or how that can be supported, I guess I should say.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions for Ms. Pell?
I really want to know, we got different sections here. Is it the intent tonight to have the presentation and have a further discussion at a later date? Or is it the intent of tonight's discussion to talk about the failure of this plan? Because I'm hearing a lot of words here. When I look at the data, we went the wrong way. And so what I'm really interested in is, why did we go the wrong way? You know, I'm hearing all these nice words, but the results don't say that. So if you're sitting in my chair today as a board member, looking out at, if I'm in your seat, what would you be asking? Because it's not working. And the 5 to 7, I mean, I sat in the strategic meeting when we did it. It wasn't the public's number. This was the administration's number that we're going to improve 5 to 7% per year. We're going to improve 3 to 5% per year. We went down 5%, and I'm hearing words. I'm not hearing why. Why did we not hit 5 to 7%? What happened? And what did we make? Did we make changes? And that's why I know you're working hard, and I don't want that to come across the wrong way. And that's why my question is, are we going to have a further discussion in depth where we can ask those questions when you have a chance to prepare for it as well? And is this just a presentation to start the process?
This is to start the process because, like I said,
I'll be quiet.
2017.
I won't be here next month to bother you guys. That was a nasty smile.
We have had it since 2017 and have never had this evaluation before. So now it's like right there.
But I know the public's frustrated by this.
Very.
And
So
so
are
we
we.
really, and I know our team's looking at it, but this has to be front and center. And this goal number 1 is the most important one of all.
Yeah, and a problem I have is that we're saying what we did, but we're not saying what year we did it, how long have we done this? Like you say, we adopted new curriculum. Okay, when? Should that have an effect on our success or not? We don't know from what you offered us here tonight when things were done and what we should have expected from it. But I'm with Mr. Klett. I mean, we have failed to meet our goals, and this is the initial discussion. Where to go next?
Well, the other thing, I'd like to know where 15, 16 was, and maybe we tried to do too much. You know, sometimes you take on too much, you can't get at the core,
and we can't really
and maybe
say
that's the mistake that we made, is that we were too aggressive instead of saying, let's just start here, and maybe it's only 1 to 2%, we're going to focus on this. I don't have the answer to that, but I'm throwing it out there for discussion because we don't want to get into a finger-pointing thing,
No.
but we want to recognize that we haven't gone where we thought we were going to go. Let's step back.
And we can't really
reevaluate.
say that we had unrealistic goals because we actually slipped backward. So it's not that we set our goals too high.
But sometimes
what you said might be true, that we're doing too much.
Yeah, sometimes you set your goals high, you got a lot of ground to cover, And I know you guys have worked hard to cover a lot of ground, and that's hard for people to change and take it all in at one time. So I don't know that's the answer. I'm just throwing out there that that discussion needs to take place.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Anything? Okay, then we can continue. Thank you, Ms. Pels.
Thank you.
Me neither. I was only looking for goal 2. So, good evening. Thank you all for this opportunity to go over the goals for the staff. Goal 2 is to enhance the work environment so employees feel a sense of worth and value and encouraging others to join the district. Our first goal, we said by June 2018, we would approve a restructured employee compensation plan addressing the issues of equality and incentives. One of the things that we have done, and I really want to thank the team for working on this and the BEA and all the other partners that we have, to include the board for allowing us to have the conversation around developing a compensation plan. For years, we've talked about the importance of being more competitive with other districts around. Now, granted, we have not approved a compensation plan as of yet, but that conversation is still ongoing, and now we believe that we're at a pretty good point in the conversation, and you should see something coming forward pretty soon. But 4 years ago, that was not even a conversation, and at this point, we're getting close. So thank you for that, and you should see something in the future. The other one, working to create equitable pay for teachers while being competitive with those outlying districts, what I talked about before. It's very important. Remember when we talked about recruiting in other places, our beginning salary was $36,000. Other districts around $39,000, $42,000, even in places like Mississippi that were once considered very low. Their beginning salaries and with the benefits and incentives are a lot more than Beloit. So that was one of the places where we went to recruit, and those are some of the challenges that we faced. And so having that conversation around this new compensation plan is going to be major. So so stay tuned. At this point, we partially met that goal. Second, the annual implementation of a form of recognition that support all staff. 4 years ago, when we arrived here, there was no formal recognition program that recognized all staff. Through the work of Tasha Bell and others within the administrative team, we formed what we call our annual Night of Distinction program. Recognition program, not only for staff, but for students and also parents and volunteers. And for those of you who have not been a part of that event, it is an outstanding event. And I want you to know it is the second largest teacher recognition event of its kind in the state of Wisconsin. So that's right here in Beloit. And we've done that for the past 3 years. And the event will be May 3rd, 2019. At the Eclipse Center this year. Any questions about that? We will meet that goal. We haven't met it yet because it's not May 3rd, but we will. Last thing I would add to that is at the bottom, you'll see what support which you need from the Board of Education to support this goal. That program is not without a cost, so we could use some support in funding that program. Thank you.
Oh, can I ask a question, please?
Yes.
Yeah, Dr. Williams, you mentioned what you're doing, and then you said that you would need $20,000 from the board. Can you tell me for what that would, I mean, what are we doing now that, I'm saying, are you saying you need to do more, other things?
Well, we will make the program, there's a cost to the program. So covering the cost of the building and so forth. I mean, just overall expenses that go along with that program.
What program? Are you talking about everything you've been doing?
Yes.
So what we
incentives, awards, and at this point, those are things that this is not a program where you make money. It's a program where you usually break even or even come in at a slight loss.
So how are you funding it right now?
We're funding it through ticket sales and donations from other people, but sometimes those donations don't always come through. It would be great if we had some support internally through our own district, if possible.
Okay, Ms. Gard, did you have a question?
I was just going to ask about how many staff attend, or how many are you expecting to attend May 3rd?
We usually have about 600 people at the event.
So in that budget amount that you're looking for, I'm assuming there's also food and the recognition.
Yes.
And so there's a lot that goes in that 20,000.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
One other comment. I'd like to see a little more specific breakdown than just a line item of $20,000. I mean, I'm not comfortable at all about doling out money like that without a proper request.
Thank you. And as a matter of fact, I think several board members have been wondering about, because you do a lot of these things, Night of Distinction, the MLK breakfast. We'd like to know how we do on those as far as cost. Do we break even? Does it come out of district funds? So maybe what you could do, Dr. Williams, is if you wouldn't mind, present us with some information about the funding of all these events.
Yeah. What I'll do is, if it's okay with you, I'll submit a request to the board with an expense breakdown of what we would ask for.
Well, not
and
just
what,
that,
and what would
but
the money would cover.
I'm asking also if you could tell us how you break down what has happened in the past. How have you done? Have you broken even? How much have you spent? Has ticket sales covered the expenses? Have they not? So we'd like to get an idea of how things have been going before we're asked, to fund more. We'd like to know how it's been going so far.
Yeah, and we could do that. Yes, and it's just to let you know, this is not a money maker at all.
Right.
So we usually break even, and as I said earlier, we're either breaking even or coming in below. So.
All right, thank you, Dr. Williams.
Okay, goal number 3 is the fiscal goal. So the goal was by April of 2018 to present a budget plan to the Board of Education that maintained the fund balance, assured financial support for all aspects of the strategic plan, and seek additional funding resources. Given the turnover in staff in the business office, the goal was not addressed in 2018. When I arrived in August, there was a partial budget developed by the interim business manager. So between August and October, we scrambled and we put together a budget for this current year, which was adopted, and we were able to set the tax levy and everything rolled along as we would want it to. And that was done to the best of our knowledge at that time. So there are things that you learn as you're here, you need to know the history of the place. So what we knew in August and September, it's probably not the same as what I know today, but hopefully 6 months from now I'll know even more, and the budget will be a lot easier to put together. So right now we are putting together a budget for the coming year, and the goal is to have it done by April. So at the next board meeting, you will get the preliminary budget for next school year. And what we'd like to do is then refine that more as we go into May, and then in June have a preliminary budget for the next school year approved by the board. So my experience in every other district is that before July 1 starts the new school year, there's a preliminary budget approved. And then you use that budget, you find out more things from the state, you find out more, you fill your staffing, things change, and then by October you've got your final budget, and that's what you guys would approve at the budget hearing. So as far as support for the board, in 2019, as I said, we'll have the preliminary budget using our best estimates of what the governor has put forward as his budget proposal, and then kind of what do we think the legislature is going to approve. So it's going to be kind of a little bit of a work of art in this coming year. Whenever there's a new state budget, you never really know what they're going to do, and especially when you've got a Democrat governor and a Republican legislature. So the plan is out there, and there's a lot of different pieces to it, so we'll be picking and choosing. Just for example, the governor wants to increase the revenue limit $200 per student. The Republicans have not increased it in the last 6 years, so maybe the compromise will be $100 per student. Maybe it'll be $0, but we'll need your help in picking, what do we think is a reasonable number in there to pick, and then we'll use that for the preliminary budget. My feeling is that they're not going to approve this budget until the very last minute. So, when they have to put out state aid on October 15th, you're probably looking at them approving a state budget on October 10th. They're going to drag this out. I don't think they're going to reach an agreement. It'd be great if they do, and if they have it all approved by July, that would be great, and we'd know. But I don't think that's going to happen. So we'll be looking to the board, as we find out more, what do you want to put in for these assumptions in the budget? Do you want to say, yes, we think half the governor's plan is going to go through, or do we think, I don't think that one's ever going to fly. Let's not even go that way, So those will be the things we'll be bringing forward in the next couple of months and talking about. And hopefully by June we'll have a good solid budget, and then it'd be great if they pass the state budget in July or August. We would have a final budget for you, even prior to October would be great if we could. And so with that, if you have any questions, we can go with those, and that's where we're at this moment.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Thome? So the way I understand it is in April you're going to be presenting us a worst case scenario, best case scenario type of proposed budget.
Yeah, what it will mainly be is just taking the staff that's here today, cast them all forward as if everybody's returning next year, cast forward the programming and the things that we knew we were going to change or do next year, put that all in, and then bring forward, here's what the revenue looks like depending on which of the governor's proposals you choose, and then how does that all shake out. So.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay. Basically, my goal was to come up with a 5- and 10-year plan and to get it approved by the board so we can also move forward with Fund 46. We did meet that goal. That was done in, June of 2018. For the actions that need to be taken, the facility director will complete a comprehensive district-wide interior and exterior review of all district buildings by December 30th, 2017. This area has been started and is expected to be completed sometime this spring. It is essentially done. One thing that I've come to is that it's a ever-evolving list. It's always added to. There's always something breaking. There's always room for improvement. So literally this list can be added to daily. Facility director will review and analyze the current district infrastructure and use industry standards and conditions to complete a 5-year and 10-year plan. Again, this was done. And the 5- and 10-year plan is actually something that has to be approved by the board yearly. And I do plan on in April's committee meeting, the infrastructure committee meeting, to talk about this. And then the plan will come before you for approval. And that'll be for starting from 2019 forward for 10 years. The nice part about this plan is that it's a fluid plan. Things change, boilers break down, Roofs Lake. So it is something that, well, today, for instance, I spent 2 hours on it, adding for this coming year and then for the next 2 years. So the goals essentially have been met. As far as support from the board, I already have that. I have that through the infrastructure committee. That is working, well, besides of, we could make the last 2 meetings, but it's been working fantastic. That is where there's just multiple opinions and multiple ideas. So I'm extremely happy with my committee, and from my opinion, it bears a lot of fruit. So.
Any questions? Okay, Mr. Winters, I just want to say I really appreciate hearing you say that the committee is working well for you, because all the input, sharing of ideas, that was the whole idea behind this restructuring of our committees. Would you mind, just real quickly, you mentioned Fund 46, would you mind explaining that for people that are watching this?
Sure. Fund 46 was established so we could put any excess money at the end of the budget year towards infrastructure. I believe it was for 7 years that the money would have to sit there. And then we would use that money for major capital improvements. I already have that money in my mind set about what I want to do. And it is a great tool. It's that old axiom, use it or lose it. This way here, we don't have to lose it. We can actually bank it away, sock it away for bigger projects, so we're not always going to our general fund. So it's a fantastic system, and I'm very appreciative of the board enacting it.
And for me, the important part is that as soon as we deposit funds into Fund 46, they're considered spent by the state and reimbursed immediately before we actually spend the funds. So that's a benefit.
Correct.
Because we're reimbursed the next year.
And Fund 46, Fund 46 is one of the things that we have slated to talk about at the next committee meeting. Because right now I believe we have $100 in it. Not going to be up anywhere. So, but again, that's the beauty of having the committee, is that there is the interaction, there's a talking. It's a partnership, I guess is the best term.
And the fact that you have $100 in it, it's just because we had to open it with some
Yes,
amount.
correct.
And if we ever have another year where at the end of the year we have funds that weren't spent, we can put them into our Fund 46.
Absolutely.
The state says we spent it and we're reimbursed at 80% the next year, and we have additional funds in. So.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your report.
Good evening again. I have an idea. If we sell some of them Clorox wipes, then just joking. We've been joking about that for quite a while, all in fun. Goal 5 is communication, leverage strategic communication tools to build and enhance relationship with our stakeholder groups, increase our presence in the community, and really share our stories. Just go over some of the things that we have done in this particular area. Just really proud of. We had a very good relationship with our Native Americans who came in and did 2 days with our staff, and also shared their experiences with our students. So that worked out very, very well. The Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Unity Breakfast, that was something that we started here a couple of years ago. And I want to thank everyone for their support of that, especially those in the community. And we always try to bring in a speaker. Those of you who've attended the VIT, you know it's a first-class event. We used to have it's a packed house every time. And so thank you for your support of that. Also, within the district, there are many Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Presentations and events that go on, and we try to make sure that we attend each one of those and support our students and families during those events. And it just went very well. Really outstanding programs this year. We've held various activities with the Minority Excellence Organization and LULAC, the League of United Latin American Citizens. I also want you to know that The National LULAC Conference will be in Milwaukee, and we've had several parents to ask if our district would probably could support a couple of our parents and some of our students to attend that event. And so I'm just putting that on the table, and I'll probably bring that request at some point in the future. We partnered with Janesville and Blackhawk Technical College to hold the first annual Dream Chasers Conference for African American males. That was a very good event. Judge Mitchell from Madison, he came and spoke at that event, but it was a really good collaboration and a very good learning experience for our students. We also work with the NAACP and Community Action to host Dr. James Meredith. Many of you may know who he is. He's the first African American to integrate the schools at the University of Mississippi way back in the day. So he came here and he spoke, and not only at the NAACP Freedom Fund dinner, but also with several of our students over at Community Action. I think Lakaya was a part of that group. It was a very good experience to meet a living legend, if you will. We also teamed with community partners to send several of our students over to Community Action for a financial literacy presentation that was held by our own Beloiter, Paulie Jones. That was a very good event. He gave out several books to our students on financial literacy and really did a hands-on approach with our students that was very impactful. So we're looking forward to having him back. We also teamed with Bridge and Build. You've heard me talk about that in many presentations here before, where we're using sports as a hook to really engage our students in mentoring, financial literacy, and in an effort to overall build wealth. And one of the things that Tasha Bell put a twist on it is what we have Lamont Weaver with his shot heard round the state, also a shout heard round the state, where not only we try to recognize the 50th anniversary of the shot heard around the state, but also with all the differences and racial tensions that's going on, not only nationally, but locally, to try to bridge that gap, not only for our community locally, but also statewide and nationally. I told you that we were doing 2 videos. You can look on the Bridge and Build website. One of the videos was launched at the Dr. Martin Luther King event. The second video, if you watched the high school state tournament, you would have seen our second video that was highlighted. And so we're very excited about that. Currently, we're working on what we call a Beloit Day that will come sometime in the fall. More information will be coming about that. We're working with Concordia and some other universities to provide some other free opportunities for our students to just expand those learning opportunities and help close that opportunities gap that exists. Thank you.
Okay, as all of you know, I arrived in August of this year, and you did have your motto of the School District of Beloit being the school district of choice. We always try to, as much as possible when we send communication out, have a consistent message with that, and try to reiterate that of it being the district of choice. Obviously, with getting test scores up and things like that, that'll help really increase that desire for parents to come into the school district. By June of 2018, they wanted to strengthen and build partnerships with major institutions, including area colleges, local and regional government offices, businesses, civic organizations, in an effort to promote the school district of Beloit. As Dr. Williams has mentioned, we've teamed with Bridge and Build to promote the work and mentorship opportunities for students. We did start a new website just last year. They implemented it late in the year. And we have Blackboard now. Social media sites also helped improve, and I try to use those as much as possible for quick hits during the day, those sorts of things. We are currently in the process of creating a central list for all of our local organizations and those sorts of things. That way we'll have them all in one area when we get them. I would say that we partially met the goals in this area, but ongoing work continues. This will and should never be a complete list, as we will have an ever-evolving list with local organizations and areas and stuff like that. Goal 3, identifying and pursue resources in and outside of the community to support innovative programs and practices in the district. What actions are we taking? Teamed with Bridge and Build to promote work and mentorship opportunities for students. The School District of Beloit has numerous partnerships, and I won't read those because you can see them up there. Rochelle Elliott has also forged a lot of good partnerships with her early literacy through the district, and those continue to evolve. I would say that we partially met the goal here as well. There's always additional partnerships and resources to pursue inside and outside of the community of Beloit. And that is it. Also, just so you know, I'm working with Ross Eberly right now. Our final piece of the puzzle with our Blackboard communications is our app that we are going to be unveiling. Our goal is to get that out this coming month in April. We're very close right now. We had to go through a bunch of steps, processes to get with like Google and Apple and those sorts of things to get the ball rolling. That's the final piece of the puzzle. What'll be nice about that, it'll be just like an app like you have on your smartphone. So if we send a communication out, you'll see that there's a message there on there, so you can get on there and then you can access that. It's just another piece of the puzzle. We've also been working very diligently with Mr. Bosco's office, so that almost all the communication that we send out, we try to get that all translated over into Spanish. I think we've done a really good job this year when we've had a number of the school closings, working with his office to get that word out right away to the Hispanic families as well as to the English-speaking families. So we've done a good job crossing over with that, and work really will be continuing that way, and we'll be a lot more diligent with our communication to all families in the district, which includes the Hispanic-speaking families. We do have dedicated Facebook and Twitter accounts that just go to those families as well, so that's a big help with having those.
Mr. Visser, Dr. Monroe just called me the other day and asked, do we have an app? And I said no, and he said, okay, we're going to get one right away. Well, I think you'll be happy to know this, but I want to ask you, can you do enrollment of children on that app? Will you be able to do that? Registration type of thing?
I'll be honest with you, I don't know all the parameters right now. Once we talk with the people at Blackboard, which we're going to be doing next week, I think we'll have a much bigger handle on all of the things that we can do and stuff like that. But if you have ideas, please send them to me. I would be happy to investigate and see what types of things we can all do and ask them some of those questions. That would be great.
I don't know if the app is going to be, something where you can have one in Spanish and one in English, or if you have to have it translated or what, but that's something to also consider. Thank you.
Yes, that's a very good point. Thank you.
Just 3 other points I just want to mention. We owe Carrie Ingredients a special thanks. Through Mike Wheeler, they gave our students a tremendous opportunity to tour that facility, and they gave us the red carpet treatment while we were there. So I really want to say thank you to Mike Wheeler and to the Carey administrative leadership team for allowing us that opportunity. I also want to say on yesterday we had the opportunity to interview for our Grow Your Own Multicultural Teacher Scholarship, and we will, for the 3rd year, have an honoree. So we're very excited about that. But one of the other things that I'm really most proud of, because a lot of times when we do a lot within the community, for the past 4 years we've tried to really engage the community and do a lot of outreach into the Latinx community. But most recently, as you know, one of our students had passed. So not only just being there on the academic side of the house, but really being there for the family during the time of need. And so I had the opportunity to visit the family while they were in Milwaukee going through the treatment and so forth. And Tasha Bell, and I want to say thank you to Ms. Bell and to Cunningham, and also a special thanks to Dr. Childs for supporting and allowing us to really work with the family during that their homegoing. So thank you.
Dr. Williams, thank you for making the effort and taking the time to go visit the student in Milwaukee. I'm sure that meant a lot to the family.
I was just going to mention one more thing with the community partnerships as well. It was just astonishing and amazing this winter to see the community partners come in and donate all the winter supplies for the kids. We just had so much community support there. It makes you really proud to say that you are part of the Beloit School District and the community of Beloit with partners like that. And a big thanks to all of them who do that. A lot of work went into that, but boy, they really came through.
Mr. Wong?
It's great to see all the communications that are going out, and good job on that. But as we heard, and it's going to be brought up a little bit later, and I'll just make a statement now on this in regards to the Latino community. I think we've done a pretty, in my opinion, a very poor job of reaching out to this area of our community, which makes up 33%, is probably hands down the fastest growing segment of our population. A very family-oriented area of our community, and we need to embrace them to a greater extent than we have at this point. I'm very glad to see it on the docket tonight for an ad hoc committee, because this is way overdue.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Looks like that completes our strategic plan presentation, correct? Okay. Thank you all. I appreciate you being here tonight to present, and the board is very aware that we've got our work cut out for us, and I'm happy that we have very competent new leadership coming in, and will help us to reassess and possibly begin rewriting a strategic plan with, I don't know, it's going to take a lot of discussion and a lot of work. But this was a first step. So we really appreciate all of you helping us to realize where we're at right now. Anyone else have any final questions or comments? Okay. Next thing on the agenda is student board member report.
Good evening, everyone. We've already talked about parking lot and traffic down at the high school, so I'll just jump right into the next thing on my list. So for people who don't know, at the high school, freshmen have a different schedule than every other grade level. So they have a different passing time and a different lunch time than us. So we really never see them at all. This is becoming kind of a bigger problem than we probably have anticipated, because they're not integrated with the rest of the classes. They don't have the vital skills that it takes to be successful, in my opinion, such as social skills. A lot of times when their bell rings to go to their passing time, I'm in class, and my teacher has to stop class to go out to the hallway to assist because they're so loud and really dramatic, which takes away from my learning time and my peers. And I feel like this is an easy fix. I just feel like they have a lack of role model or people who can just guide them in the right direction. A lot of times they think the behavior that they display is cool, because they don't have the ability to analyze the older students. I know when I was coming in from 8th grade, I learned a lot about how to act from watching the older kids, so I feel that they should kind of be integrated or put in with us so that they can learn a little bit more. Next, the tardy policy. I'm really excited about this, actually. I know that tardiness has been a big issue at the high school. However, I am a little nervous. I've heard a lot of negative talk from student body at the high school. I'm afraid that this policy is eventually going to emerge into unexcused absences instead of just tardies, especially for morning classes, due to the consequences being far worse for tardiness than the consequences of unexcused absences, which are pretty much just letters being sent home asking families to come in for meetings that are never really attended. And then after that, there's really no further consequences other than just the continuous harassment with the letters being sent home. I have an example. I have a friend who, she's a senior. She's been to school 4 days out of this whole term, and she's never been suspended. She's never been counseled or anything like that. So I think that the absences and the tardies go hand in hand. However, the tardiness might turn into unexcused absences due to the lack of consequences for absences. I think our biggest problem is inconsistency. We always come up with really, really good ideas. However, we don't always enforce them. So just continuing to do that would, I feel like, increase our prosperity in these different aspects. But I'm really excited to see the outcome of the implementation because it seems like a good idea. And then I have a question. Did we ever come to an agreement or anything about parking passes? And then my next question is, because I've been getting hounded by the students, we had, at the beginning of the year, there was a proposal or something like that going around that there's going to be a Subway and a Pizza Hut at the high school, but we never got it, and now kids are almost fighting me over it, and I have no control over it. So I was just wondering the updates about that.
The Pizza Hut and Subway issue was really one of their corporate structures and what they insisted we do that we weren't able to do. Consequently, what our food service folks chose to do instead was to try to present similar quality food through our own food service program. What it lacks is, you know, the label, the name, and it was just a matter of, for a public tax-supported entity like the school district, we could not enter into the kind of agreements that they were demanding that we enter into. Now, Ms. Smith, who operates for Aramark, our meal programs, she can explain it pretty well. And, you know, I know there was something of an article earlier in the year in a newspaper, but it might be worth student newspaper following up with her and getting a fuller explanation of all that stuff.
Okay.
And the parking passes, I think that kind of got dropped, but I think it's a topic that needs further consideration.
Ms. Jackson, thanks for your report, and you brought up an interesting thought about maybe absences will increase. So I'm glad that you brought that up because, you know, this is, I'm sure, a fluid plan.
Mm-hmm.
That, you know, it's being piloted, and they need to hear concerns like that, and we'll see what happens. I wonder also if you can tell me if the kids are saying anything about the proposed 12th grade closed campus for next year, closing lunch.
Well, I don't know if you guys have ever paid attention, but every time that we implement something new, it always comes back on the 2020 class, and they're so frustrated by it. Honestly, I can understand why the campus is being closed due to like safety reasons and stuff like that. However, I feel like it would be a good idea to at least give them a chance first just to see how things go. I don't think their class is that bad, honestly. I feel like they would do pretty well with it. So, and I know that the class officers for the junior class are really pushing and asking. I know we had a meeting with Emily, and we were all talking, and they were so frustrated, like, why does everything bad always happen to our class? And so I feel like maybe give them a chance first, and then if things don't go the way as planned, maybe change it later.
All right, thank you. Does anyone else have any questions for our student rep? All right. Now we have a report from the Communication Committee, please, Mr. Wilson.
Pam, could I interrupt?
I'm sorry, yes.
Could we make a motion to extend the meeting because we're approaching the 9 o'clock
Thank you.
time? So I'd like to make a motion to extend the meeting beyond 9 o'clock.
Thank you. Is there a second? I'll second. Okay. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so we'll extend the meeting. Thank you for that, Ms. Sanchez. Okay, Mr.
Thanks for
Wilson.
that extension. It's refreshing. Thanks for everybody that's still with us this evening. Just a quick update from our Communication Committee meeting. We met on February 27th at 4:30. We did have a quorum. We briefly ripped apart Mr. Visser's marketing sheet that he's been diligently preparing for us, so we appreciate your work that you've been putting into doing with that, and we look forward to ripping it up again at our next meeting. And he did present, did inform us that there would be a future presentation on the functionality of Blackboard, and he reported back on, was it the Whisper Conference with his counterparts and other public information officers about the awesome that is the School District of Beloit. And our next meeting is tomorrow. I repeat, tomorrow at 4:30 p.m. here at the COLAC. Newest member of the Communications Committee, Tony Bosco, raising the roof off the camera. That's all I got.
Okay. All right, thank you. And Fiscal Committee, Ms. Gard.
I will be giving it.
Oh, you'll be giving it. Okay, thank you.
Okay. The fiscal committee met on Wednesday, March 6th. We had some discussion and information regarding financial advisors. Mr. Tome explained that Springstead was a recommendation for the new financial advisor. And then we did also speak regarding the tax levy stabilization. The levy would Tome explained that the levy would, for 1920, with no adjustments and energy exemption falling off, the levy would decrease significantly for 1920, and then it would rise significantly for 2021. So one suggestion was the Fund 80, but some additional debt payment to pay off the debt faster would only drop the levy slightly, which is still a savings to the taxpayer, but does not then make a huge increase in 2021. We also discussed the governor's budget proposal and the things coming forward, like Mr. Tome had explained earlier today. We also discussed the School District of Beloit Foundation Board. I believe this is a board that not sure if it was dissolved or if it was dissolved, or so we were getting more information on that. And then Mr. Tome had also indicated that the preliminary budget would be presented by the end of June. And we did discuss custodial maintenance outsourcing expense versus bringing it back in-house, with a significant difference of what we're paying currently at about $2.9 million versus $4.5 million. So, and that ended our meeting, and our next meeting will be on April 10th at 5 o'clock.
Thank you, Ms. Sanchez. Student, Ms. Gard.
I want to thank Wendy for giving that report. I have a dry cough. I didn't know if I was going to make it or not. But our next meeting, we have to postpone it to April 17th, and I'm going to send out a notice to the committee. So thank you, Wendy.
Okay, and now Student Committee, Mr. Wong.
Students Committee met on Tuesday, March 12th at 4 p.m. We had a quorum. The bulk of the conversation or the meeting took place regarding curriculum purchases, and this is way overdue for many of these areas that are actually going to be voted on tonight. So it included music and history. Many of these topics have not seen curriculum upgrades in 15 plus years, so it was way overdue. The other area that'll be discussed a little bit later, and then the other topic, actually I exited early and I don't have minutes from that meeting, but they did talk about the earmark, the food services. That was a discussion that was brought up to determine the food program in the various schools. There are some programs that are actually more favorable, that some of the teachers, I believe the 4K breakfast is a very popular one, and they're looking at ways to perhaps duplicate that. So I didn't hear all the minutes on that because I was not present at the meeting at the time. So that's all I have. The next meeting will be Tuesday, April 16th at 4 p.m. I have.
Okay, thank you for that. Now, I see that somehow our consent agenda is reversed. Item L should be item A. So I'm looking for a motion to approve everything under number 6, which is consent agenda. In one motion, please.
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion on any of these items? All right. Oh, Ms. Scard?
I didn't see where they were on our packet tonight.
Okay, let's table these.
I would like to table them, but I don't know how you want to. They're not present for.
Let's table these. Is there, let's see, there's a motion and a second. So it could have a motion to amend the motion, please. To table.
I would like to amend the motions to table the consent list.
Could we do it before April? In other words, could we do it on April 2nd?
Yeah.
Okay.
Postpone till April 2nd.
Okay.
Instead of table, I'd like to postpone it till April 2nd.
I'll second that.
Okay, so all in favor of that amendment, say aye. Aye. Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. And, all right. So we have tabled the consent agenda, postponed it until April 2. There were no nays, correct? Okay. Well, we can, but it's been so drastically amended. We can vote if you want to for the record. Okay, so we'll vote on the motion that was amended. All in favor of the original motion, which has now been amended to table or postpone until April 2nd? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, any opposed? All right, so again, we have postponed the consent agenda items until April 2nd. All right, now we are on the business agenda. Item 7A, approval of the formation of an ad hoc committee. Is there a motion? And this ad hoc committee is for studying the many needs that we discovered when we had the listening session with the Hispanic community. So we need a motion to approve the ad hoc committee, and then we'll have discussion.
I'll move approval for the formation of the ad hoc committee for the Latino community.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. And then any discussion? And this will not, tonight's vote will not include the membership, but will just be agreement that we will form such an ad hoc committee. Mr. Wilson?
Well, I think it's a great idea. I think there are other, issues that our district can, dive into. While I think the Latino population is a growing population, I don't know if I was the only one that wasn't surprised by a lot of the issues that they brought up because they're not new to our community. But again, there are other underserved, unserved populations in our community. We just need to be mindful of that when we're forming ad hoc committees, specifically cultural ad hoc committees. So that's just my 2 cents.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Ms. Gard?
Specifically with specifically with the work of the Quality Committee as well.
Okay, Ms. Gard?
I'm happy that we are forming this ad hoc committee. After the 2 listening sessions, it was apparent there are some needs that are specific to this group that have not been met, and I think that's what the ad hoc committee will be looking at, are specific issues that were brought up in the listening session. One in particular that strikes me is the lack of understanding of how to bring a complaint from to the teacher, to the principal, to the superintendent, to the board, and not understanding that process because there is not information in Spanish for them to read. So that's just one example of what I hope the ad hoc committee will look at, but there were many issues that were just specific that came out of those listening sessions.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Dr. Williams?
Thank you for this opportunity. I wanted to just highlight some of the, especially at this moment where you're talking about this ad hoc committee, and one comment was made earlier that our outreach inside the Latinx community has been poor. I just want to bring to light some of the things that has taken place within this district. 4 years ago when we came here, there was very, very little to no communication with and outreach within the Latinx community. It was the Equality Committee through our first meeting here that brought that issue to light. The fact that we even have a bilingual department at this point with Mr. Bosco in the area of teaching and learning, that grew out of that conversation with the Equality Committee, and because of the outreach that was needed inside the Latinx community. The formation of LULAC. I remember coming to the board, saying to the board that I was going to, we were going to bring the League of United Latin American Citizens here to Beloit. Nobody had heard of it at the time, very few people. Today, you have 2 adult chapters here within Beloit, and it is the largest student organization at the high school, a student chapter with over 70 kids that's involved in that group. We have a Latinx parents liaison with Christina Douglas to provide additional outreach. Our students are engaged. They participate in the Day Without Latinos, the college tour, just about every parent activity that goes on within the Latinx community, we have been involved with. Through Tasha Bell, we meet on a monthly basis for the past 4 years with various Latinx organizations, the League, Latino service providers, and are very engaged in some of the issues that have come up. We steadily try to address scholarships for students. Even our students who are undocumented, we provided tremendous outreach to colleges and universities to provide those students with an opportunity to go to college. We know how difficult it is for those undocumented students to even get a scholarship, but we provide that outreach to our families and to our students from the school district of Beloit. Our relationship with Help Yourself, and if you were in some of those interviews, they talked about how important the school district and Help Yourself has what an instrumental role they have played in allowing them to get certain scholarships in order for them to further their education. The African American and Latino tutoring program. Very little diversity here 4 years ago. We formed those organizations to give our students an opportunity to see other students, if you will, adults who look like them inside of the school. So those students went out inside of every school and provided tutoring and mentoring services to other African American and Latino students who would normally not see kids who look like them. Communication devices. One of the things that this board said, well, how can we get more Latinx parents inside of our school inside of our board meetings. So we purchased those communication devices that are not only available for use here, but also available for use within the community, so that communication would not be a barrier for parents who need that. The Even Start Language program, as you know, that's ongoing on a daily basis, where Black Hawk Tech provides that. We work with them to continue that ongoing service. And also, so that kids could have some fun, our relationship that we have with Community Action for the past several years, one night a week, they open up Community Action to allow our Latinx students an opportunity to have a dance, have a community meeting, make music, and a whole lot of variety of things. So I just wanted to highlight some of those things that are going on. Now, granted, there's many areas where we can improve, and there's always more work to do. But I don't want the work of a committee, the Equality Committee, and the work of the staff people within this district to be dismissed as poor when we have done tremendous outreach inside the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. And I hope that we see that work continue as we start this committee and talk about other needs and talk about much more work that has to be done. Because, I mean, maybe some board members knew about the problems that we have, but I certainly didn't. And I'm not sure why we chose the Hispanic community as our first listening session. It was one of our board goals. We chose this as our first. And I'm just very thankful that we did, because we discovered so much and we learned so much. And like Mr. Wong said, 33% of our students, that's not a small cultural group we're talking about. That's a large group of kids that we can help. And by helping them, we bring our entire district up. Mr. Bosco?
Ms. Sanchez.
Oh, Sanchez.
I just wanted to say that those are all great things, Dr. Williams, and continue to do those things. But I think it goes above and beyond that. It goes back to cultural things that are happening in our schools, with our parents, with our students. And I think it's more of it's something we all need to understand and get a grip on, so that we can help that generate out into our schools and our buildings for parents and students. So not dismissing anything that you guys have done. You've done a wonderful job, and keep doing those great things. I think it's just something a little bit more, it's different.
And just before you start, Mr. Bosco, I want to say that I agree with Ms. Sanchez. I mean, you say that we have these headphones to translate, but how many people do you see in this room wearing them? I don't see any, and that's a huge problem. When we held this listening session, we had quite a turnout, even though they received their postcard invitations the day after. So they want to be brought in. They want to be heard. They want to be part of the solution, and they were so happy that we held this listening session. So I think we're on the right track, and I'm just glad that we have a board that agrees. Ms. Card?
I would just like to also thank Dr. Williams. He's correct. He has, his department has done a marvelous job with the LULAC in particular. I remember when you brought that forward. But I agree with all that has been said, that there is a specific need. And when we say ad hoc committee, there is a beginning, there is an end, there's a charge. So it's not a committee that will go on and on. It will be a committee to complement the work that the Equality Committee is doing. And so I just want to go on record saying that a lot of wonderful things have come out of the Equality Committee, but I think some of it is looking in how we might help. And what the Latino Committee, Latino listening sessions showed us is there's just a lack of communication of what their need is and how we're addressing that need. So it's not anything against what the Equality Committee has accomplished, because there's been a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Klatt.
And I understand what David said earlier as well. We started this, when I got appointed to the board, equity. and there's various discussions about it, and the decision was made to equity should be part of the administration on an ongoing basis. And now we're about to start an ad hoc committee for a group of people that, yes, I get it. But are we now defeating what we talked about in the beginning was we wanted equity to be part of our everyday deal with the administration overseeing that, and listening sessions are great, but really, shouldn't it be a process that the equity that we were going to incorporate into our day-to-day administration team, shouldn't it come from there? I mean, we're going to start an ad hoc committee because we had a listening session, I got it, but you had a listening session, you learned a lot. Shouldn't that be then the equity within the administration team's job to take that and build on that and develop that relationship versus pulling away from the administration, saying we're going to have our own ad hoc committee, and then we're going to oversee this for a short time period and then turn it over to you? That's kind of what I'm hearing. So that's my concern, because we started way back with Dr. Williams and talked about equity and bringing everything internal, and now we seem to be going down a different path. And I'm not saying it's a bad path. I'm just saying, are we now changing what we were saying earlier when I started on this board?
Okay. Would anyone else like to respond? Or I will respond to Mr. Klett. The purpose of an ad hoc committee is to carefully study.
I got that. No,
okay.
I don't need that. I don't need you to respond. I'm just telling you what we started with equity, a different concept. I got what an ad hoc committee is and what it does. I don't need that lecture on that.
No, but I'm confused about what. I'm confused. If you could just.
We started the year with equity becoming part of the administration team. Equity.
Right.
Equity.
The equity.
That's everybody.
The equality committee, you mean?
No, we were talking about equity and equality. And we were going to brand it all under one umbrella with the administration team. Very clearly, that's what our goal was as this board.
What the administration team is bringing forward is that the equality committee will be an administration
I'm not talking
committee.
about the equality. You're talking equality and equity. There's two
right,
separate issues we started the year with.
Come forward tonight.
So we were going to. We actually, Daryl had several conversations with the board earlier in my term. We were going to put everything under the strategic plan equity. That's how we're going to handle things going forward. That's what we talked about. Now we're talking about going back and saying we're doing an ad hoc committee here, but under the guise of still equity. So I'm just saying to the board, I'm not saying don't do it, but be careful where you're going down. This isn't just a Band-Aid. Equity should be a day-to-day administration overseeing it every day, not the board getting involved with ad hoc committees and to me, micromanaging to some extent. And that's just my feeling. So let's make sure we stay on that tracker where we started, that equity is an everyday thing for everybody.
I understand what you're saying.
And part of the administration team being involved in that process. And my fear is the board's pulling away a little bit now, saying we're doing ad hoc because we had some great listening sessions. We should have listening sessions all the time for everybody.
Okay, I see what you're saying now. You're talking about the equity plan that we said we wanted to have part of our strategic plan and to be an everyday thing. You're right. Okay, because
don't lose track of the long-term goal here.
I think you were unable to be at the listening session, and so you didn't hear what the rest of us heard. And no. I didn't say you chose not to be. I didn't say you chose not to be. I said you were unable to be there. So the rest of us that heard it, I think, are really feeling that the best way to tackle it is through an ad hoc committee to study it and to bring forward some recommendations and to get some people that were there at the listening sessions had great ideas and they really want to come in and be a part of it.
That's what listening sessions are for.
Right. But then they have, they're in a very good place to say, here's some ideas to share. And, the ad hoc committees are not micromanaging.
You and I have a different opinion.
That's why we have them.
We'll be on the board in a month from now anyway, so it won't be my decision.
Okay.
I'll be here though. I echo that sentiment. I echo what you just said, Jeff. They didn't hear me when I said it, but I'm glad you said it.
All right, thank you. Okay.
All right. Could I have
Mr. Buss?
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. First of all, I apologize for not being at the listening session.
I had a group of 11 teachers at NABE, which is the National Association of Bilingual Education Conference, trying to expand our cultural proficiency in this area, because as you all saw on that day, there's a lot of work that we're continuing to do, continuing to learn, and continuing to try to bring to the district. I think something with the ad hoc committee that I just would like to present to you is I'm very curious to see amongst the board what you know about the outreach efforts to date, what you know about the efforts of the bilingual department to date, because I'd love to have the opportunity to come before the board and talk about what we've been doing to engage the Latino community before we push forward with an ad hoc committee. I think the thing that we have to understand is, for over a year, I've been working on trying to expand dual language across the district, because we have students, Latino students, ELL identified students in other buildings that we don't feel are being served. And so this idea that we're not trying to outreach to the community, we're not doing enough, there's always more to be done, clearly always more to be done, but we're really trying to develop a plan that's strategic and really connects with the community on a very ground level, because we meet every single month with a Grupo de Enfoque, a small group of parents, and also Todos Unidos. We've been doing events all year with this community. There was an immigration lawyer down the cafeteria at the high school tonight serving our families, and I don't know how much of this the board is aware of. So before we go to an ad hoc committee, I'd love for myself, my department, to come and do a presentation about what we're doing, what we're looking at for next year, and then make your decision about an ad hoc.
And Mr. Bosco, the thing is that I would hope that you and other administrators would be part of the ad hoc committee and would bring that kind of thing there for the discussion. I mean, this is the purpose of an ad hoc committee.
Well, but I understand that, but I'd like you to just kind of have a complete picture of what we're working on, and then if you as a board feel after that an ad hoc is still needed, I have no problem with that. I'd love to be a part of the ad hoc, but I'm just wondering if we don't already kind of have some ad hoc things going on.
Well, when you say ad hoc things, I mean, an ad hoc committee just has a specific purpose of they have one purpose given by the board, an issue, to study and to bring recommendations to the board. It doesn't mean that it wouldn't mean to continue everything Dr. Williams is doing, to continue what you're doing, but hopefully they would come up with more, because we had heard some real cries for help. And this wasn't a small group that we met with, 2 meetings that were very well attended. I don't feel right doing nothing right now except for waiting for more to come to us when that could be done in an ad hoc committee. We're not saying we're washing our hands of it as board. An ad hoc committee is doing board work in a small group, studying, and then coming to the board and saying, this is what we found, this is what we recommend. And if you're a part of that, you're going to be telling them this is what we're doing, and maybe they'll tell you this is why it hasn't worked as well as you've wanted, or yeah, we appreciate that, but we need this as well. I mean, I don't think it's going to hurt if we don't have an interest in having an ad hoc committee in this community, then fine. But I bet you that we're going to have a lot of people that say they would be very interested in helping.
And I'd still like to do a presentation. I think
Sure.
I want you to understand that I'm feeling a little bit in terms of there's a knowledge gap or an information gap about what we've been doing.
We can
to serve
always
the
use more
community.
information.
Perfect. So I'd love to
Yes.
bring that to the next board meeting.
Yes. Ms. Sanchez.
And we did hear about a lot of those things, Tony, that day at the listening session.
Sure.
There was actually people that meet in your group that you have, that monthly group that you have there. And I actually personally got to talk to Tulio a little bit about it. But again, like Pam said, I don't think it's a lack of what you guys are doing in your specific departments or in your specific roles. I think it's just something a little bit beyond. I think there's a cry for help that's needed, and it's maybe a language barrier, maybe not just that, but the cultural background that comes with it and how to express themselves or ask for help.
Okay.
All right,
so
thank you.
I'd like to move on. It's almost 9:30. Real quick, Dr.
Yes,
Williams?
real quick. Thank you. You know, if the board decides to go that direction, I would hope the board would consider, because many of the issues that may be challenging, come up as an issue in the Latino community, same for the African American community, and the same level of effort and energy that's behind this, we would hope that it would be behind that population as well.
Thank you. Okay, now could I have a motion on the establishment of an ad hoc committee? Again, this does not, there was a motion and there was a second? I'm sorry. Okay, so we've had our discussion. All in favor of approval of an ad hoc committee which does not include membership, that will be discussed at the next meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Okay. So we now have agreed to form an ad hoc committee to study the needs of the Hispanic community in our school district, and we will move on.
Nay.
Two. All right, thank you. Now we'll move on to, yes, adoption of curriculum. World language resource adoptions, please. Is there someone that's going to present something to us or not?
We took the adoption, the instructional materials adoption to Students Committee 2 weeks ago. Again, as Mr. Wong talked about, world language curricula have not been touched since the mid-2000s. We started dual language in 2012. We need a complete revamp so that it aligns with dual language. So that's kind of why we brought this to the board.
Pam.
Okay. Mr. Wong?
One additional comment I wanted to make is that when the presentation was given on the curricula, as far as it was done by staff, and that was very appealing to me, is that they're the ones that did the homework and looked at everything over, so this has been vetted by staff.
So this is a recommendation, after hearing it from staff, recommendation from the Students Committee. Okay, I have one question about it, though. I see dual language immersion for grades 7 through 8. Is this a progressive program? We're not
Absolutely.
throwing it into 7 and 8,
Yeah.
correct?
Say that again?
We're not just adding on 7 and 8, but I mean, we're adding it on, but the kids are now in 6th.
Yes.
Right?
We'll be going to 7th next year.
Okay, I understand then.
Okay.
Thank you. Do you, Ms. Guard?
I would like just a clarification on how much all of the textbooks are going to cost. In the past, our business packet had a lot of information that was easier to access than what we have now, and I'm just looking for the total dollar amount, and then I would like to ask Mr. Tome if that's within what's been budgeted.
That was the first page that was in the packet, listed all of the.
I have it, but it seems
It was in board docs. I looked at it before.
there's like how many? Eight documents.
All right, I put my bifocals back on.
What I wrote down is $150,000.
right in
Does
there,
that
right.
sound
Yep.
right? Okay, that's what I
Yep.
wanted to have clarification on.
We had one sheet that had by curricula what the cost for each one was.
I do have that, but I didn't see a total.
Oh.
Oh, okay. I didn't.
Yes.
I'm sorry. There
Okay.
were several, and I copied the wrong one.
That's
but
all right.
About 162,
62, I think, something like
Okay,
that.
thank you. And that's within the budget, correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so is there a motion? And do any of you want to approve these all in one, or do you want to go through each one?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve approve them collectively as is presented in this item on the agenda.
Okay, so B, C, and D.
Correct.
Okay. Is there a
Second that motion.
Jeff, you second it?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Any more discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, so world language, K through 6, music, and K through 12, social studies has been approved. Now we have item E, which is board officer duties, second reading. And this policy
E. I'm sorry.
has to do with the vice president versus the secretary keeping attendance at our meetings. It was formerly the vice president. This has changed to make it the secretary. Is there a motion for this? Policy 141.2.
I move approval of the revisions of policy 141.2 board officer duties for final reading.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor of approval of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Did you, Mr. Klatt, did you have something you wanted to say? Oh, okay, sorry, because I didn't ask for discussion. I thought maybe I messed up there. Okay, now we have policy 164, board member compensation and expenses. If you all remember this from about 6 weeks ago.
Motion to approve.
All right. Is there any discussion? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Policy 164 passes. Now we're at 165.1, conflict of interest, second reading. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Larson, you look like you're ready to say something.
We're just going quickly. I was making sure that we had our soft gloves on. For
soft gloves.
For kids, Chinese taking minutes.
Okay, I'm lost, but, okay, so 165.1, board member conflict of interest. There's a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Okay, the motion passes. And now we are at policy 171.2, agenda preparation and dissemination, second reading.
I move approval.
All right. And this is just to ensure that board packets and agenda items are prepared in a timely manner, everything uploaded so that we have that when we needed it on board docs. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. Is there any discussion?
Yes.
Mr. Klett?
My only concern with it, maybe it doesn't mean anything, but since it's a Board of Education meeting, shouldn't it really be the prepared by the board president with the assistance of the superintendent? It's our meeting, not their meeting.
All right. You want
It's just a word thing, but it's just the way I am.
so you'd like to flip those two?
I think it makes more sense since it's our board meeting. It should be done by the board with the help of the superintendent.
Okay. Would you like to make that an amendment?
I would make a motion amendment to change the wording that the agenda for each Board of Education meeting shall be prepared by the board president with the assistance of the superintendent of schools.
Okay.
I'll second the amendment.
All right. Any discussion on the amendment? All in favor on the amendment, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Okay. Now vote on the main motion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, so policy 171.2 passes with the amended change. And now we are at policy 262, administrative committees. And I need a motion for policy 262, please. This one is, let's see, I'm actually really not sure what was changed on there. Ms. Gard, do you recall?
But I can read it.
I mean, it seemed,
I mean, if you want it read for the audience and for the...
well, it is regarding our district's administrative committees. We had the policy before. I'm not sure what exactly changed, except for before we added a rule to it and then we took it out, so maybe it's just coming back without that.
I believe the purpose was so that there would be more flexibility, especially with the committees that he oversees, the superintendent oversees, I should say. And I think it came forward because of the equality committee going under the superintendent, so the wording was changed.
Okay. So all in favor of approval of policy 26. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve Administrative Committee's Policy 262.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any more discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed, say nay. Okay, now we are at policy 262, Rule 1, Administrative Committees. And this is regarding the Equality Committee being an ongoing committee of the superintendent charged to collaborate, guide, and advise him or her on matters of racial and ethnic equity, diversity, academic, and social emotional learning in minority subcultures within the school district. Is there a motion to approve?
I'd like to approve this policy.
Is there
Make a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? Mr. Wilson?
Just got one thing. So I know there are a lot of cultures that exist within our school district, but I just need some clarification on what a subculture is, a minority subculture.
Well, it would be one of those cultures
Yeah, but why is it a subculture though?
because it's one of many. So, I mean, our entire school district is our entire student body, and then a subculture would be any part of that student body. Do you have a suggestion for changing the wording?
Yeah, I would take subculture out. I mean, when it's
Minority
in the,
culture, would you say?
I would say.
Okay. Would you like to offer that as an amendment?
Yes, I'd like to offer an amendment to the approval of the 262 Rule 1 to eliminate sub on the hyphenated word subcultures.
Okay. Is there a second for that motion, for the amendment?
I'll second the amendment.
All right, any discussion on the amendment? Okay, so we're voting on the amendment. All in favor of removing sub from subcultures, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Okay, so now with the change, we'll vote on the main motion. All in favor, is there any more discussion on the main motion? Okay, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Okay, policy 262, Rule 1 passes. And we are now down to policy 420, Rule 1, 4-year-old and 5-year-old kindergarten enrollment. These are changes that Mr. Larson brought to our attention that were needed because of changes in law.
I think we're on 420.
420. Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I skipped the rule. So 420, school admissions, same story there. All right, is there a motion?
I move approval of the revisions of policy 420, school admissions for final reading.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion on this policy? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Okay, policy 420 passes, and now policy 420, Rule 1, for 4-year-old and 5-year-old kindergarten enrollment period guidelines. This is for deletion because it is no longer necessary with the revisions of the policy. Is there a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we delete both Policy 420 Rule 1 and Policy 420 Rule 2, which has to do with student enrollment guidelines, because Policy 420, the one that we just approved, takes care of the information in those two policies.
Okay, thank you. So
I'll
there's a
second
motion to delete both. There's a second. Is there any discussion on these deletions? All right, all in favor of deleting policy 420 Rule 1 and policy 420 Rule 2, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Say nay. All right, so those two rules, Rule 1 and Rule 2, are now deleted. And now we're at policy 421, admission to kindergarten and first grade for second reading. And this is also to comply with legal mandate that 5-year-old kindergarten is required before entering first grade. It previously was not required years ago. Is there a motion?
I move approval of the revision of policy 421, admission to kindergarten and first grade for final reading.
Second.
Okay. All right. Is there any discussion? All in favor of policy 421 as written, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Okay. Policy 421 passes, and now we're on policy 723.4, emergency school closings for second reading. And this, came out of this horrible winter. We're clarifying our policy on school closings. And there's no hard and fast rules, it looks like here, but we did suggest 25 below, blowing snow, drifting snow, and so forth. So is there a motion for this one?
I move to the approval of the revision of policy 723.4, emergency school closings for final reading.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion on this policy? All right, seeing none, all in favor of policy 723.4 approval,
Aye.
please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right, policy 723.4 passes, and now we have Rule 1 to that policy, emergency school closings. Is there a motion?
I'll move approval of policy 723.4, Rule 1, emergency school closings procedures, second reading, or final reading.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion on the rule?
I have one clarification that it's not really covered. I'm assuming common sense will take care of it. Just because the buses roll doesn't mean the sidewalks are cleared and the crosswalks are safe. So we don't make any provision here about kids that walk to school that shouldn't be walking to school when those conditions are present.
Right. Do you
I'm
have
assuming
any-
common sense would rule, but just because a school bus can pull out of the bus barn doesn't mean the kid can walk a half a mile to school.
So which section here are you talking about?
I'm talking about the emergency school closing procedures.
I mean, A, B, C,
It
A?
isn't-
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if you need anything, I would, but, we had that fiasco this year where the buses could roll, so we left school open, and then we justified why we left it open, even though kids really couldn't walk, and intersections were horrible. So, I know it's kind of getting into the minutiae and micromanaging a little bit, but I just want to make sure when we make that call, we're considering that we have a lot of neighborhood schools where kids walk to school.
Okay, so I don't think this is micromanaging for you to bring this up. I see what you're saying. If you go down to C, it lists factors. Would you like to actually add something in there about, it just says blowing snow. Would you like to add something in? Is there a suggestion you have?
I don't know how
because-
I'd word it, Pam. I don't know if you'd say for pedestrian traffic to safely make their way to and from school.
Because I hear what you're saying, definitely. And we did talk about this when we did first reading, whether or not to put so many inches of snow in there and.
Well, it has nothing to do with inches of snow either. I mean.
Right, well, I
For the
mean.
people that are walking.
You got kids that are 4 and 5 years old walking
Right,
in
right.
a foot and a half of drifting snow. Is that really what we want to have happen because the buses can roll?
That's what I'm saying. You have little kids and a foot of snow, even 8 inches might be too much for them to walk in. So do we have, so do we
That's
have?
why I say it's common sense, and it's just we didn't show common sense at one time this year. So I don't know if you say that you have to safely determine that students can walk to and from school. I don't know how.
I mean, I think one of the
I'm just bringing
important
it for
things.
discussion. Maybe you don't need to do anything with it all, but because it won't come up to play. I would like to think it wouldn't, but I'm just fearful of that.
Someone brought up that the high school sidewalks weren't even shoveled and kids were having to walk through them with a foot of snow there, and so.
Well, I know one
mean-
mom had to carry her kid because she couldn't walk through the sidewalk to get to the bus station because the buses could roll.
Mhm.
But she was a stay-home mom and she could do it. Not everybody has a stay-home mom or dad that can get their kid to the bus, even to the bus stop or down that half mile to their school. So I don't mean to hold this up. I know it's
That's
getting
okay.
late,
The
but
board took the heat for this, and that's why we're looking at this policy, and this is our role. So does anyone have a suggestion?
But I don't know how to word it.
So are we talking about the section that, under A?
A
Is that
or
what we're
C?
looking?
I'm sorry, A or E?
I don't know where you'd put
So
it.
under A, if we did, maybe closed by the superintendent or designee whenever roads cannot be traveled safely by any means of travel?
Well, you could put sidewalks. I mean, pedestrian travel, whatever you want.
By pedestrians or buses.
By pedestrians or buses, yeah.
Yeah, we could say that.
If you had pedestrians, I think it would.
And that might at least trigger someone to think of,
You do have
oh, yeah.
You do have the out of May.
The what?
So it says the schools may be closed.
Yeah, and maybe that's not a good word to have may there.
Does Dr. Childs have a recommendation because he worked on this policy? I'm curious.
My recommendation is that you go with what you suggested last time, which is 25 below wind chill and 6 inches of snow, even though it is standard throughout the states of Wisconsin and Minnesota, that 8 inches and 35 below wind chill are generally the standard by which they abide when they're making decisions of that nature. Certainly would not hurt anything to add pedestrian and amend it in that regard to A.
Okay, so, yeah, Minnesota's a whole nother breed of humans. So I would be happy. I live there, I can tell you. They go biking in 8 inches of snow. 25 degrees, and so you're suggesting we add 8 inches of snow.
You said 6.
I'm sorry, 6 inches of snow into that, and then pedestrian in the paragraph A.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so would someone like to make an amendment? Do we have a motion and a second already? Yes. We do. Okay, so we need an amendment.
Well, I'll offer the amendment on A that we include the word pedestrian traveled safely by school buses. I don't know if you want to comma or pedestrians. I don't know the quite right. Getting late.
So
Quite. Wendy, help me. How to word that? So I get safely by school buses.
by how about by
Foot travel.
by pedestrian or school?
You could by pedestrian, school buses, excessive. I think that if you put pedestrian first, I think that would be better.
By pedestrians or school buses.
And then if you want to add, do you want to add the negative 25 degrees Fahrenheit or 6 inches of snow?
The negative 25 is down there in section E.
But I'm talking about this, where's the inches at?
There's
Are we
so
adding the inches or not adding the inches? That's what
Dr. Childs is suggesting we make it 6 inches.
I'm not sold on that part.
What part are you?
I'm making the amendment for pedestrian only in section A, that we add the word pedestrian before school buses, pedestrian or school buses. That's my motion.
Okay, so we don't, Mr. Larson, did you have something?
I'd like to second his amendment.
Okay, so we're leaving out the definition of how many inches of snow, correct? We're all happy with that?
So, right, because when we had discussed this before, we talked about, because then there usually has to be a timing of the snowfall. So if the 6 inches of snow falls before midnight, do we close schools? Or when does that 6 inches of snow have to fall in order for schools to be closed? And it made it difficult to set those guidelines and perimeters.
Okay, did we want to change the word may to will or shall? Because right now, it's pretty subjective. The policy says you can or cannot close it if it's unsafe travel. Do we want to say shall instead of may?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so all right, so then would someone like to make an amendment for the word shall to be substituted for the word may?
You're going to amend the amendment, okay.
That's okay.
No,
I'm just waiting for someone to amend.
Okay, I'll make an amendment to change that word may to shall.
Okay. Is there a second for that amendment?
I will second that amendment.
Okay, is there any discussion on that? All in favor of changing the word may to shall, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Okay, now the next amendment we have to vote on is, the wording is going to be, schools shall be closed by the superintendent or designee whenever roads cannot be traveled safely by pedestrians or school buses. All right, whenever travel is unsafe by pedestrians. For pedestrians or school buses. Okay, so Schools shall be closed by the superintendent or designee whenever the roads cannot be traveled safely by pedestrians, whenever travel is not safe for pedestrians or school buses. We did. Whenever travel is not safe. Okay. You got that, Jenny?
Whenever travel is not safe for pedestrians or school buses?
Right. Okay.
Or is it just buses? Because
No, pedestrians or, see, do you want city buses and school buses? Because that's another fact. No, but would we cancel school if kids couldn't get in by bus? Many kids take the bus. Let's just say buses. Okay. So that's clear. Now, is there any more discussion on that? Okay, all in favor of the amendment, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right, so that amendment passes, and now we have the main motion. Now we have the main motion for passing 723.4, Row 1, as amended. Any more discussion? Okay, all in favor of passing 723.4, Row 1, as amended, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, now we're moving on to paraprofessional and sub-paraprofessional salary proposal. We don't have Ms. Carradine with us tonight.
No, but we're proposing one of two possibilities. We're proposing a 2-year possibility, which would increase paraprofessional pay from whatever the current amount is, $12.37 or whatever it is, to $14 an hour for this year, which would make us retroactive, which would make us competitive with those districts with whom we compare and districts around us. And then we are requesting a suggestion that for the second year of this proposal, next year, the rate be raised to $15 an hour. There is an alternative proposal that would simply raise it to $15 an hour this year and leave it. Your pleasure.
I don't really see why we would go with the larger jump right now. Does anyone have a motion or an opinion on this?
Is this money already in the budget and it has been planned for?
I don't know that it's been planned for, but there is money in the budget. I mean, budgets are fungible and funds get moved around.
Ms.
Doc-
Guard?
Dr. Childs, is this the same proposal that Ms. Carradine gave, I think, last month, where she said, the first proposal, whether it would be, I think she said something like a $36,000 impact the first year. Is that the first option?
Yes.
Okay. I would like to make a motion that we accept the first proposal as presented last month for the fiscal impact around $36,000.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
I think that these are two separate things. I think that the one that Ms. Carradine presented before was about adjusting the pay for long-term substitute paraprofessionals, bringing their pay equal to the regular paraprofessional pay. So I think these are two separate plans.
Okay, I'm really confused, and I'd prefer to wait if this is not what we saw last month. Is there a second on this already?
Well, I beg to differ. Ms. Carradine and I sat together and put this proposal together, and the plan was for our paraprofessionals in this proposal to be brought into alignment with our competitors, which this year would be $14 an hour, with the second year going to $15 an hour.
So where on here does it say the fiscal impact? Because maybe that's what we need to see to really understand this. Let's see.
I don't know, and my computer died, so.
Fiscal impact it says 362,000, so
That's for everybody.
I remember.
We're meeting next Tuesday again. 1 week isn't going to matter. We're at 5 to 10. We're
Yeah.
long night, and I don't want to. We got numbers in front of us. There seems to be questions about the numbers.
Yeah.
I don't know how we withdraw the motion, but
Do we have a motion in a second?
We do.
We can just
I think you
call the
can.
question.
You can withdraw your motion, I believe.
Let's just vote on the motion.
Well, no, it can be withdrawn.
No, because there's a second. All in favor of the motion to approve, say aye. All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Nay. Okay, so would anyone like to make another motion of how to handle this item Q?
I move to postpone item Q until our April 2nd.
Could we say any meeting in April, because this actually doesn't, it's not a rush, and we may not have time on April 2nd, but in April meeting?
I move to postpone item Q for any meeting in April.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, any more discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Okay, and now we have March 2019 personnel employment recommendations. And there are all the exhibits A, B, and C.
I don't see C on, C is not,
It's down under administrative.
You know what, could we hold C to vote in the?
Mine's not
I'd like to
there.
hold C because I'd like to vote for it when we go back into closed session, or when we come out of the next closed session. So could we approve A and B right now?
I don't have C.
I can't find C.
It's for
It's in the special board.
Okay.
Let's vote on it back there.
Okay.
So A and B for now?
Okay. I'd like to make a motion that we approve personnel recommendations, Exhibit A and Exhibit B.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, is there any more discussion? All in favor of personnel recommendations A and B, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Okay, now we are at future agenda items. Does anyone have anything they'd like to mention?
Did we already put the truancy officer on the agenda for the meeting?
Truancy?
Presentation for the truancy officer?
It was pulled and it's going to come back. Yeah, so truancy is, Mr. Wilson was asking about truancy. It will come back. And Mr. Larson is working on that. Okay, does anyone have any other suggestions?
Ms. Charles.
Yes.
I'm not going to be at another business meeting, but I can tell you if there is a way, and maybe this is a discussion with the administration, to condense our business package so that we don't have to open up so many documents in between. I think all the business meetings up until we had board docs, it was easier to follow, and I don't know how we would do it, but for me anyway, when we have like 9 documents to open up for a discussion under one item, it gets a little confusing.
Mm-hmm.
And the way we used to be able to do it, it was just easier to read, and it flowed easy.
So you're
I don't
suggesting
know.
maybe several pages when you open one
Yes,
item.
like a PDF.
Good idea.
So maybe that's a discussion for administration. I just know since we've had this format, several areas of discussion has had anywhere from 1 to maybe 9 documents to open at one time.
Yeah, I agree, and then you lose track of them on your
Correct.
screen, so thank you for that. Okay, and then I would like to, Mr. Larson, go ahead.
I have a few things. I'm sorry.
No problem.
And of course we can work this timing out with administration and how the agendas fall, but around the June business meeting, I would like a presentation on the math interventionist, because we did invest quite a bit of money into this new position this year in their district. And so I would like to know principal feedback, best practices, any changes we would make for next year. what training PD did the interventionists take part in this year, as well as looking at the data for the students that the interventionists worked with. And then kind of overall, was this a good investment of taxpayer dollars, and why or why not? I know June, I'm sure MAP data will be a big part of that. Also, in May, I know we talked a little bit tonight about the behavior specialists, but I would still like to learn more about how they were used this year, more about the trainings and professional developments they took part in, if there's any data supporting how they benefited the students, and again, was it a good investment of our tax dollars? And one more. Okay. And then we did have truancy on the agenda for tonight, but it's kind of a bigger animal as we learn more about it. So in April and May, I would like a presentation on truancy, but I would like the chief to be here, Fred Atlas, as well as the gentleman from the county. His name is Lance. I'm not even going to try his last name. Okay. And I would like the presentation to include truancy rates for every year, starting in 2015-16, an outline of the plan created when we decided to stop using citations, as well as there's supposed to be a truancy committee. So what information do we have about the committee, who's on it, when do they meet, examples of things that the committee has done to service the families, as well as next steps with truancy. And I sent emails with all the information for you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Larson. Anyone else? Ms. Sanchez.
Could we invite Anthony, maybe with his group of colleagues, to give us a presentation on what he wanted to show us? So, I mean, he wanted to show us what they're doing.
Yeah,
so that everybody
definitely.
sees what's going on. So if we could invite him.
Okay. All right, and then I have one, and I'm mentioning it on television for a reason, because I received an email from a former employee the other day, and she showed a picture of our third-party exit interview letter that she received, and she said, "Have you ever seen this before?" And I said, "No, but I'm glad you shared it with me." I said, "It's legitimate." I think she thought it was some kind of a scam or something. I said, "It's legitimate. Please complete it, and you can be totally honest. It's completely anonymous." And she thought that was wonderful and thanked me and is completing it. But I don't think we've communicated this very well to our employees, our former employees, that they'll be receiving this in the mail, and we really need to let them know to expect that. So that's possibly something that can come up at staff committee.
We are going to have an update on this.
Okay.
So and actually Tracy Shirk will be there, so we can
Great.
discuss that with her at that time.
Somehow we have to get the word out to people when they resign that they'll be getting this letter, and that we'd appreciate their input. Okay. All right.
And actually, it's a project that goes back to January 1, 2017, because you left on 3rd. So anybody that left the district after January 1st, 2017 will get a letter. There was no other way to notify them. There was no email records, so the only way to get it out was a letter. So if you're listening and you haven't got a letter, please let the board know. On our meeting that Kyle's referencing on April 9th, Tracy will make a presentation. I've also asked the BEA to represent there, because I'd like to see the district put it on the website, on their Facebook page, the BEA website, and the BEA Facebook page. And if you're leaving the district this year, up through June, Tracy Shirk will be doing an independent exit interview separate from the school. What we're trying to find out is why we've lost so much staff the last 2 years and why people are leaving. Is there something that we should be doing differently? It's truly a fact-finding thing, but we want it to be completely independent and people to feel that they can be honest and open and not have to worry about anything bad happening to them, because it's not for that purpose. And the last thing I wanted to mention, because you helped me out, tomorrow night is a forum for school board candidates. You saw a meeting tonight of school board people. If you don't like it, or you think you want to reelect people, go to that meeting. It starts at 4:30, and I think, where's it at, Pam or John?
It's at the Ironworks.
Ironworks. Our own Pam, Charles, and John will be there, as long as the other candidates in the city. So great time to get to know your candidates and be engaged in this process.
Yeah, Jenny?
I just wanted to add that some of our employees have also gotten text messages about the exit survey. So if they get a text message, it is also a valid.
Okay, so since you don't have a microphone, I'm going to just say that too, that some of the former employees are receiving text messages from the third party. Okay, about the survey. So if there's any questions, please don't just disregard it or throw it out, but give the school district a call. And Jeff, I have a question. You said they'll be doing these interviews separate from the school, but we're not doing, the school district is no longer doing the interviews, correct? Okay, so they're doing them instead of the school district.
Up through June, exit interviews are supposed to be done only by Tracy Shirk and independently.
Okay.
So, yes.
All right. We have a meeting tomorrow night, our first naming committee meeting.
At 5 o'clock or immediately following the communication committee meeting in room 106.
Okay, and I just wanted to, there is also the forum tomorrow night at the Ironworks Hotel, and we will be there. And so will two people who've sat this entire meeting, Ms. Tori Champany and Mr. Phil Van Landingham. Oh, I got it. Thanks for being here tonight. Okay, all right, Ms. Scard.
As long as we're mentioning dates too, on April 18th, there's going to be a presentation at Beloit Memorial High School for the Hall of Fame, and all board members are invited. And I just thought I would mention that because if there are 4 or more, then that's a quorum, and the public needs to know. I have attended in the past, and sometimes there's only one board member or 2, and it's a wonderful opportunity, so I wanted to bring that up publicly, and whoever is elected on April 2nd should
Yeah,
contact.
would be welcome to come.
Yeah.
I will be on vacation, unfortunately. I won't be able to attend, but those are always a really nice event. So thank you for mentioning that.
And then lastly, I wanted to say thank you. This has been an honor to serve on this board, and I wanted to say it publicly. This board has accomplished a lot in the last few months since we've been appointed, and so that would be my parting remark.
And
So,
thank you, and thank Mr. Platt, both of you, for stepping up to fill in when you were so badly needed, and you did such a great job, and we have accomplished a lot, and I've enjoyed working with both of you, and we'll have you back to have a tearful goodbye. Thank you both very much. Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
All right. All in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you.